Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto Uzumaki was summoned to a world of magic, and caused chaos with Melissa, Meryl, Ino Yamanaka, and Tenten Part 1. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. A young man spoke to an elderly man wearing the robes of a mage, and they were before a massive device that resembled a giant solarium with several crystal globes in several rings around them. The elderly mage was still intent on studying the device in the ruined tower. This had been the site of some sort of experiment made by a mage many centuries before, but was eventually abandoned due to certain circumstances. Why complain? We're here to see if this magical artifact can be worth something to the guild. The study of this device could prove to be the key to many things here for our world. But sir, wasn't that device outlawed when it was discovered to be highly unstable? That was long ago. Besides, magic has improved since then, and this device could go a very long way in making transportation of many things even more effective when time is of the essence and not to be wasted. The device was a dimensional portal, designed to take objects and move them through a tunnel of magic and send them to another place entirely without the need of traveling for days, weeks, months, or even years. But the portal was not used for a long time, as many fought to control it, and the mage decided to shut it down. How can we even get it to work? With this crystal would prove to be the key for it all. It has more than enough energy to do its work. The mage revealed a massive crystal, and it glowed with great power. The mage then without warning placed it into a bowl, and the device activated, and the mage spoke, startling the man. Wait, Master Rolf. We haven't even tested the device yet. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, my young apprentice. We need to see if it can still open a portal. In the Naruto world. Man, what a life. Naruto woke up in his new room and shook the cobwebs from his mind and got up to look out the window of his new apartment. And the sounds of the morning were very good to his ears. It had been nearly 2 years since the fall of Uchiha Madara and Akatsuki, as well as the defeat of Danzo's faction when the old goat tried to take power from Tsunade. He had just managed to finally complete the jutsu his father, the fourth Hokage known also as Minato Namikaze, had planned for him to use, and that granted him full control over the power of the Kyuubi without being overwhelmed by it all. That proved the key when he fought with Pain, and he decimated the leader of Akatsuki and then fought with Madara, fulfilling the prophecy of him being the child of destiny. He had turned from the destroyer to the savior and had saved many lives, including Hinata and Shizune's lives, as well as those who had been killed by Pain when he attacked. The leader of Akatsuki had been destroyed by him and the Kyuubi, and he was able to do the same to Madara and then used the gift Itachi had given him to defeat Sasuke when his former friend came back to fight and destroy Konoha. That had been a bitter fight, but in the end he won and Sasuke had been restrained. Team Hawk came back, but he had been ready and he defeated them with the help of the others, and he had managed to stop Sasuke, and he had worked hard to bring peace back to Konoha ever since. The last of the Uchiha had been given a chance to get his justice on the three who were the ones who had his clan destroyed, but Naruto defeated him when he turned on Konoha. After he was beaten, he was banished as his Sharingan finally was sealed away by the curse on it. That had been hard for him and Sakura, but it had to be done after all, and it was the path that Sasuke walked when he turned on Konoha. The former Konoha ninja and his team were banished and were never seen again for past year. Naruto placed those thoughts aside for now and got dressed in his usual garb and wore the red and black long coat he had gotten, and then looked at the picture he had of his team and the picture of Kakashi and Jiraiya. That was the hardest for him. Losing two good sensei, but at least their names and their deeds were never going to leave his memory. And he finally saw the picture of his father and mother together with Jiraiya, and then there was another set of pictures on his table. The first was with him, Sakura, Sai, and Yamato, as Sai chose to side with them and aided in defeating Danzo as well as became a good friend. The second was with Gamabunta and both Ma and Pa Toad after they had recovered, and the other one was very important. It was him with Sakura and Hinata with all smiles. He smiled and took the pictures with him to remember always. He had been able to take the Chunin exams and finally graduated to being Chunin, though many said he was already a Jonin ninja and a Sannin as well. He was one step closer to being a Hokage, and it made him happy that he had finally helped bring peace to the land. As he got out of his new apartment fully dressed and carrying the Toad summoning contract on his back, He was smiling as he spotted Sai, Sakura, Hinata, Yamato, along with Konohamaru and Iruka, and knew that there was a lot to do at the moment. However, he was suddenly alerted by the Kyuubi. Watch it, Kit. Something doesn't feel right. What are you saying, Kyuubi? He heard a massive tearing sound behind him and he turned to see some sort of glowing gate in the shape of a star behind him. He didn't know what it was but then felt something dragging him towards it and he panicked and tried to get away, but the force was too much and he was completely caught off guard by this. Sakura and the others were shocked when the gate opened and began to suck Naruto in and they quickly rushed to try and help him. Hinata was very much terrified and shouted out, "Naruto-kun." It was too late as Naruto was sucked through the glowing symbol and it vanished, leaving the group stunned as Hinata and Sakura were shaken by what happened. Yamato turned and decided to hurry and report to Tsunade on what had just happened. He knew she was not going to like this. In another place, Naruto shook his head as he felt like throwing up. He forced himself to relax and found himself in a forest and he felt a tingling in his body and the Kyuubi spoke. "This place. It feels alive somehow. There's so much chakra here. Where the heck are we?" Naruto had no idea and moved up to the forest and climbed up a tree, and as soon as he did so, he found himself in a totally alien world as there was no sign of the Hokage monument anywhere and there was no sign of Konoha at all. It was then that he spotted a massive city and decided to move there. "There's a city. Maybe we can find some answers there. I hope so. Something about this place makes me feel different and I don't mean in a nice way." It had taken some time but Naruto arrived near the outskirts and saw the possible name of the city. Ophen. What kind of a name is that? Don't know either, but I am sensing a lot of chakra in that direction. We might as well head off there and see just what we can find. Naruto knew that he didn't have much in terms of options at the moment and decided to go down there and see just what was it he could find that could at least give him a clue as to how he got there in the first place. Later, Naruto was getting all the more irritated by all this. This place known as Ophen had literally nothing that he could associate with Konoha. There were no electrical posts, no Hokage monument, no Konoha Academy, and worse yet, no ramen. He had entered the city through the front gate as he replied that he was looking for someone to the guards, which was not far from the truth, and then they spotted the scroll on his back and apparently that was enough to let him come into the city. Where the hell am I? Naruto tried to find anyone remotely familiar in Ophen but had no such luck. It was weird being here. There seemed to be nothing that resembled anything he was familiar with back home. He had explored the city for the past 2 hours and still nothing. However, the blonde Shunin felt something and turned to see a stall that had some artifacts in them and he felt great energy coming from some of them. He moved closer and looked at them and the stall owner spoke. "Hey there, friend. Care to buy some magical wares for your studies?" "Huh, magical studies?" The store owner were surprised at this and wondered just who he was. He was not dressed as a swordsman and that massive scroll on his back must mean he was a mage of some sort. Maybe he was suffering from some side effect of a spell. It was not unusual for some spells to cause some slight memory loss, or so he heard. "Yeah, are you a student of the Magic Guild?" "Magic. I should have known. That thing that dragged us here is a magical portal." "Magical portal? What are you saying, Kyuubi?" "It'll take a while to explain, but magical portals are ancient gateways from other worlds. I encountered a few when I was younger. Whoever opened that portal must have dragged us here. Do you think magic can bring us back to Konoha?" "Possible. But we're going to have to find a great source of power as well as a powerful enough magic user to get us there. Magic is a bit like chakra manipulation and control, though it usually needs a medium of some sort to channel the power better. That magic guild might have the answers we need." Naruto thought about it and knew that now was the time to lie somewhat. "No, I just arrived here." "Oh, so you're a new arrival hoping to study here?" "You might say that. Do you know where I can find the magic guild?" "Yeah. It's in the academic quarter of the city and you can't miss it. It's got the highest tower here in the city." "Oh yeah. There was a young mage who passed by here and was on her way to the academy. She's got red hair with a long tail on the back and wears glasses." Naruto nodded and left, hoping to find the person described to him by the stall owner. He then decided to hit the walls and climb the roofs and quickly did so with ease. Much to the surprise of some of the people nearby, he quickly leapt over the roofs of several buildings and searched as best he could. He then heard a cry. "Leave me alone." The voice was female and Naruto could tell that the person was indeed in trouble and he headed in that direction, and when he arrived there were a couple of unwashed thugs cornering a young woman, who had deep red hair and glasses. Naruto realized that this person must be the one that the stall owner mentioned, but damn, she was attractive. Naruto managed to get his head out of that train of thought for a moment and could tell that the thugs were up to something and he had to help. Ayla was not happy with this as she tried to ready a spell. The thugs were following her when she left the eyes of the city watch after shopping in the magical artifacts quarter of Ophen. She tried to lose them in the alleys, but since she had not ventured out as often from the guild like the other students, she had no idea about the city as much as they did, and now here she was. Stay away from me. The men laughed. They were very much not going to listen as they were aware she had the look of a merchant's daughter and would be worth a lot of money to her folks, plus it had been a while. Don't worry little Elde, we're just going to have some fun with you. Yeah, it's been a while now. The lustful looks they had on their faces were not lost to Ayla, and she felt even greater panic as she tried to focus her spell and then unleashed a powerful flare. That was enough to surprise the thugs and she tried to escape, but one of them tripped her and she lost her glasses. She felt a hand grab her arm wickedly and the voice of the thug. So a magic user This will be great. Ayla was about to cry and wish for rescue. She got her wish when the thug gave out a cry of pain and released her. She scrambled away and managed to find her glasses as she heard several more shouts of pain, and when she got on her glasses, she realized that she and her tormentors were not alone as another was there. Leave the lady alone, you rats. Ayla looked at her rescuer and found herself staring at a young man with spiky blonde hair and wore some sort of long-sleeved shirt in black and pants along with sandals and a red long coat with black flames, and a massive scroll on his back as well as a pouch of some sort on his left leg. She then looked at the face and gasped as she saw that his rescuer was handsome. He had deep blue eyes and a well-featured face, and there were 3 marks on his cheeks that didn't detract his features at all. The headband on his head had a strange spiral symbol that resembled a leaf. Hey, Minato was considered very handsome, and since Jiraiya stated that Naruto looks so much like his father, then no doubt Naruto at the age of 17 is going to look like his old man. The thugs got up and Ayla saw that some of them were wounded by strange star-shaped metallic weapons, and they got those out and threw them away and there took out their weapons such as knives and short swords. You punk. We're going to cut you up. Naruto glared at that and replied. I don't think so. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Ayla and the thugs were dumbfounded as there were explosions of smoke, then instead of one man there were a dozen near him who looked just like him. Before the thugs could react, the group charged at them and began to unleash hell as Naruto and his Kage Bushin used his taijutsu to fight with, and since Guy had taught him a good number of moves to honor Kakashi, the blonde Chunin had a level of skill equaling his old friend Lee when he was still a genin. The thugs were sent packing to the ground by the blows as they couldn't seem to defend themselves properly, and they fell back to the ground with bruises and injuries in areas they had no idea they had. The unknown arrival then offered his hand to one of the other copies, and the other one began to move his hands, and then there was a glowing sphere on the hand of the new arrival, and then without any other words, the arrival slammed the sphere into a nearby wall. The thugs and Ayla were shocked by the massive explosion that followed. Dust and stone fragments filled the air, and when it cleared, the thugs gasped and felt like pissing in their pants as there was a massive hole in the wall, and the man spoke them as he was joined by another copy, and then the same sphere of glowing light came back into his hand. Unless you all want that to tear you all open, I suggest you run. The thugs took the advice and ran. Taking on a man who could make copies of himself and hit like a sledgehammer was painful enough, but facing a mage who could rip them apart like they were tissue paper with that spell of his was something they were planning to stick around for. Ayla was impressed. She had never heard of that move before, and it was impressive indeed that her rescuer could do that without a wand. She looked at her rescuer as he offered his hand to help her get up from the ground she was sitting on. She blushed a bit and accepted his hand, and as soon as she got up, she remembered her manners and spoke. Thank you. My name is Ayla. Naruto smiled at that and replied back. My name's Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. It was then that the city watch arrived, and so did a certain headmaster of the Magic Guild. Headmaster Carwes had been on a routine trip to the market to check the latest supply of goods and magical components to add to the academy selection when he detected a massive spike in the spiritual energies, and when he arrived it was to see several unwashed men running away as if they had seen a dragon chasing them. It was then when Ayla arrived with a new arrival. someone he didn't recognize, and when he saw the wall, he could see the devastation there and couldn't help but sense the energies released by the elemental spirits. And as he looked at the young man who walked with Isla towards him, he could see a great deal of power coming from him. This young man would prove an interesting person. Later, both Isla, her classmate Jean, and Carwes watched as Naruto downed the food before at a very rapid pace. They were not used to seeing someone pack away so much food before in their lives. Naruto had eaten a whole roasted chicken, some bread, 3 beef steaks, and a lot of hot soup made from fish, squid, and crabs. Where was he putting it all? Naruto had no idea he was this hungry, and as much as he wanted to have ramen, he had to make do. He already knew that using Ryo was out of the question, as paper money was no doubt worthless, as he had seen the people pay with solid coins of gold. Thus he would have to find other means to get funding, but at least he was getting a free meal. As soon as he was done, he gave a sigh and replied, "Now I am full. Thanks a great deal for the food, Mr. Carwes." Carwes smiled at that. He had always been called Master Carwes before, and being called Mr. was something of a change. "You are quite welcome, Naruto. I have to thank you for saving one of my academy's students." "Yes. That was amazing, the way you were able to make those copies of yourself and then summoning that massive energy sphere to send those men running. And without a wand too. What do you mean by that, Isla?" Isla smiled as she looked at her new friend with a great deal of hero worship in her eyes as she began to explain what she had seen Naruto do to save her life to Carwes. "It was amazing, Master Carwes. He threw those star-like weapons at the thugs to wound them and then created copies of himself without a wand. He and the copies attacked so fast. Bam! Whop! And defeated the thugs like they were mere children, and he then used one of the copies to create a sphere of pure light, and then he slammed it into the wall and it exploded. Boom! When the dust cleared, there was a massive hole in the wall, and when Naruto and his copy made another one, the thugs just left." Carwes was intrigued. As head of the Magic Guild, he was familiar with spells that could create copies of the caster, but he had never heard of it being done without a wand before. If this young man was able to do that without a wand, then he would make a powerful mage indeed with the right training. Naruto scratched his head and wondered just what he was going to do on how to explain his abilities. Apparently the people here were not all that familiar with chakra, and he would have to explain it again. It was confusing already to be somewhere where no one knew who or what he was, not to mention that the things he normally knew existed, like TV, electricity, refrigeration and more, were not around, and that was beginning to annoy him to no end. But these were nice people and he needed help, and since Isla and Carwes as well as Jean were magic users, they could help him. "Actually, that wasn't magic." "Oh, you're not a magic user?" "I rather doubt that. Anyone who could create copies of himself and then create powerful sphere of energy must be a magic user." Naruto shook his head and replied, "Those things I did required me to use chakra. Actually, they don't use magic." Isla, Jean and Carwes were surprised by this, as they had never heard of chakra before, and the head of the Magic Guild in Ophen decided to ask the question. "What is chakra, Naruto?" Naruto scratched his head and wished that he had more time to explain things, but decided to do what he could in order to educate his companions. He thought back of the lectures he had in the academy as well as Iruka's words on the matter concerning chakra. Chakra is an energy source in living things such as plants, animals and people. They come from two sources: the physical energy inherent in the body and the cells, and the second source is from the spiritual and mental one gets from exercise and experience. We use chakra where I come from to create jutsus. J. Justice. Naruto nodded and replied, "Jutsus are techniques that rely on chakra exclusively to be used. Jutsus like the Kage Bushin no Jutsu require a great deal of chakra, so low-level jutsus require very little. The size and complex nature of the jutsu means you use up more chakra to do the jutsu successfully, so you might call it magic where I come from. Chakra even has an elemental affinity which can make it useful for certain jutsus that require elemental affinity." Elemental affinity. Yep. There are at least 5 elemental chakra types where I came from: fire, wind, water, earth, and lightning. Back home, we use a special paper grown from trees fed with chakra that reacts when chakra is passed through it. Fire burns it to ash, lightning crumples it, earth makes it fall apart, wind rips it into two, and water soaks it. For me, I'm a wind chakra type, so I'm more attuned to using wind-based jutsu. Sometimes 2 chakra types confuse to create a totally different element, and that can be very powerful. We mostly use hand seals to use chakra properly for a jutsu, and there are many combinations. Interesting. So where is it that you come from, Naruto? I have never heard of things like this before in my many years before I settled to found the Magic Academy here in Ophen. Are there others like you? Naruto looked about and was very worried about what he was going to have to say, as much as he needed help from Carwes and Ayla, if they could help at all. The blonde Shunin knew that he had to be in a much safer place to get things done, and he spoke to them. I don't think being in a restaurant is the right place to discuss these matters. Is there anywhere else a lot more private? Carwes could tell that this was serious indeed and knew of two places they could go, and since that one was a bit closer, then all the better, plus he had an old friend that could be willing to hear this. In the Temple of Miley. Wow, what a place. Naruto had seen a lot of places for the past many years, yet this one was amazing. This was the first time he had ever walked into a temple, as Carwes called it, and there were a huge number of people there in the temple, and all dressed in some sort of white long dress and had embroidery on them, plus a short cape in green or light blue colors and some sort of cap. To his amazement, a vast majority of them were women, and many of them were attractive. Ayla had wanted to come with them, but she had to head back as she was still needing to study for her lessons. He still hoped to see Sakura and Hinata again, so he managed to get his thoughts back on track, but had to admit that seeing a beautiful woman or more than one beautiful woman could grab him easily. He was older now, and maybe his pervy sage of a teacher had finally rubbed off on him. Naruto gave a sad thought of the pervy sage who was his godfather and his father's sensei as well. He placed those thoughts aside as they entered a large room, and then there was a table and some chairs, and there was a woman with long auburn hair there wearing robes that were the same but different from Carwes, almost more holy in nature, reminding him of Shien's own robes as a priestess. She had a motherly smile and that made him feel more at ease. Hello there, Carwes. It's always a pleasure to see you here. Carwes smiled and responded. It's good to see you too, Jenny. I would like you to meet Naruto Uzumaki. A lad with an exceptional gift and, as far as I can see, a great deal of potential as a sorcerer. But he has much to tell us, and some of it is too private to be anywhere else. I see. Welcome then, Naruto Uzumaki. My name is Jenny and I am head priestess of Miley the war god. Carwes and I were partners and good friends for many years, and I am happy to welcome you here. Naruto smiled as he could tell that Jenny meant her greetings, and he felt a bit more at ease. As the three of them sat down, an acolyte brought some refreshments to the room and left, and as soon as he was ready, he spoke to the two friends. He told them of the history of his world and how it came to be and what ninjas were and who he was. Jenny was somewhat surprised to learn that ninjas were assassins and explained that assassins were reviled by many in this world and by its people, but Naruto explained that only on very desperate situations was assassination called for. He told them about chakra and all that he knew about it, as well as what he had learned from Iruka, Kakashi, and Jiraiya, as well as Tsunade and Shizune. He even told them that he could sense that the two of them had considerable chakra, and with the right training, both mental, spiritual, and physical, both of them could make very good level ninjas. He told them also of the village he came from without getting into too much detail, as well as the lands and customs of the places he had seen in his many years and his own adventures with his team, and then he moved to a topic that he knew would be hard for him. The Biju, or the tailed beasts. Carwes and Jenny were shocked at hearing about the existence of such powerful and malevolent entities, and the fact that he harbored one inside of him made them uneasy, let alone the most powerful of their kind. He couldn't blame them. He was committing a mistake telling them this, but he had grown up and he had changed, thanks to so many people. He told them about Iruka, who stood by him even when the truth came out, about Gaara, who was like him and how he had changed the former Jinchuriki of Shukaku, as well as Iruka, Chio, Jiraiya, Shizune, Tsunade, who trusted him with the future, and of course his parents and his father Minato, who taught him the jutsu to finally be able to become the child of destiny he was destined to be. He also told them of his friends who were very important to him and no doubt who were waiting for him to return home. As he was finished with that part, he explained how he landed here in their world and then asked them the question that was very important to him. I know what I told you is hard to believe, and believe me, even I can't believe it. But I am from another world and I need help getting back there. A lot of my friends are very worried about me and I want to make sure that I can see them again. Since both of you are magic users, maybe you can help me get home. Carwes and Jenny had to admit that Naruto's story was very incredible, but they knew that their powers were not enough. The description of what Naruto saw convinced them that it was a magical portal that brought him to their world from his own. The problem was that the magic needed for it was not easy for one to have in the body and would require a powerful source of magical energy, not to mention that it required a powerful device to focus such energy to create and stabilize the portal. However, there was a chance for Naruto to return home, but he still needed to learn as much as he could about magic to learn as much as he needed in order to get home to his own world. He had the potential and the ability after all, and he could very well learn magic. Carwes was the first to work on the idea. Naruto, from what you've told Jenny and I, you were taken into this world from a dimensional magic portal, and no doubt it was powered by something that required a considerable amount of power. Neither Jenny or I have that power. However, we have a solution. Naruto was disappointed at first at hearing that the two couldn't help him, but hearing that they had a solution, he was already all ears. Go on. The records we have in the Magic Guild in Ophen can be able to help you in finding the materials, artifacts, and also the possible locations of power where you can make a portal. However, it will not be an easy thing. Access to such information is normally restricted to outsiders unless you become a student in the Magic Guild. Not only that, you have to be familiar with magic and magical artifacts as well, which requires years of study and hard dedication. That is why I would like to offer you a personal invitation to be a student in the Magic Guild here in Ophen. It can help you uncover the information that you seek, as well as learn the magical skill and ability needed in making a portal. Portals are hard to make in themselves, but without the skill needed to maintain and direct them, you could wind up in another place entirely. Is it all right for you, Naruto? Jenny then replied. There are many ruins and artifacts that can help you find a way to return home, young Naruto, but only if you know just where to look and how to use them. I believe learning magic will go a long way in helping you while you are here, so I have to agree with Master Carwes's suggestion that you study in the academy, Naruto. Naruto thought it over, and then the Kyuubi spoke to him. I suggest you take their advice, Kit. They know magic and they are right. Unless you know what you're doing, how you control magic, and you know what you need in order to make the portal, you're going to be sent to who knows where. Naruto mulled it over and decided that if this was the best way for him to find his way back home to Konoha and keep it from harm, then he might as well learn as much as he could about magic, and what else could prove useful for him. After all, he could use the things here to help better himself in the long run. His quest to be a Hokage was not over yet, and also his desire to make peace and happiness in the world he lived in like his sensei Jiraiya did was not gone just yet, plus his desire to use his own way to bring peace as his father wanted him to do was there. He might be here by accident, but he could always do his best no matter the odds. With that in mind, he nodded to both Carwes and Jenny and replied. Thank you for letting me do this. I will do my best to learn magic, and I will do my best not to be a burden to you both. Carwes and Jenny smiled at this. They both knew that while this was highly unusual by most if not all standards, but they both could tell that Naruto would be a very interesting person. And they could see that despite his past he was a strong person and had overcome many things to become the young man before them, and that made him all the more an interesting young man. Carwes then spoke for both Jenny and himself. Then I, Carwes of the Magic Guild of Ophen, welcome you, Naruto Uzumaki, to the Magic Guild. In another part of Naruto's new world. Rolf coughed as the dust cleared and saw that the tower had collapsed. The strain of the magical energies had weakened and destroyed the device as well as the tower, but he had the blueprints with him, and that would help him a great deal in perfecting the device when the time came for him to try again. He would have to rebuild his funds, to buy the materials he needed and the time to work in peace. But with these plans, this new device could usher in a new era for all of the land. Foltest looked over his list of students for the day and turned to see none other than Naruto Uzumaki sleeping on his desk yet again, and that galled him even more at the moment. The blonde was always sleeping in class whenever Foltest was around, and the elderly instructor wondered if Naruto was always doing this just to annoy him to no end. However, he decided to not focus on it and went on with the lecture. The elderly instructor did his best to focus on the lesson, but it seemed that Naruto was snoring even more and it was getting on his nerves, and he knew that he would have to do something soon enough. As soon as he finished his lecture on the use of higher-level elemental shield spells, he turned and spoke to Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki, wake up and tell me if you had been paying attention. The only response he got from Naruto was a snore as the blonde continued to snore, and it was not long before a vein popped on Foltest's head and he roared at the blonde ninja who was still snoring. Naruto Uzumaki, Wake up. The other students would have cringed in fear at the way Foltest looked at the moment, roaring like an ogre in a foul mood. But still Naruto continued to snore, uncaring for the elderly instructor's anger, and it was not long before Foltest decided that he had enough and was about to use his wand to whack Naruto on the head. As soon as he hit it, however, the blonde grabbed his wand and replied, "I'm trying to sleep here for Kami's sake, stop making so much racket." Foltest glared and spoke evenly, trying desperately not to lose his temper. "You will release my wand right now, Naruto Uzumaki, or you are going to be in serious trouble." "Right. By." Foltest and the other students blinked as the blonde mage in training poofed away in a cloud of smoke and was gone. He used that trick again. Arg. Foltest tried to keep his temper from hitting the roof. Every day it was the same thing for the past 10 months. The blonde would always fall asleep in his classes, and then when he was about to discipline him, he just poofed away, and it was maddening to the instructor how disrespectful Naruto was. He was the most senior instructor in the whole guild and was to be respected and feared by all students, but not Naruto. No, the blonde didn't seem to care and did what he liked in his time in the classroom, and the elderly instructor wondered if he was doing all this just for the pleasure of annoying him. There were also times that when he tried to get Naruto do his lessons physically, the blonde would disappear for hours, and when he had hoped the blonde student would suffer for his laziness, he was shocked to learn that not only had he passed the written tests with good scores, but he was able to apply magic in ways Foltest and some other instructors had never thought possible. Many other students have learned to steer clear of Naruto when he was angry. A number of higher seniority students had tried to bully him, as well as taunt him for his lower-born origins and his use of such unknown unarmed combat skills, but they were quick to be silent as Naruto reacted in very unorthodox but highly effective ways. There had been some who had their potions explode and coat them with chemicals, others had their rooms painted with not just paint, but refuse, others would find their robes coated with some sort of powder and it would burn their clothes so fast when they put them on that they would be. Other times, Naruto would use his unarmed combat skills to pound them silent. The academy infirmary would have a lot of students there in their care when some of the more headstrong students failed to get the message. Most other students, however, found Naruto's antics to be somewhat humorous and entertaining. Even some instructors and Carwes found it humorous and very entertaining as well, much to Foltest's disgust on the matter, and he wished that he was able to finally remove Naruto from the grounds of the academy. But since he had been invited by Carwes and sponsored by the head of the guild, there was not much Foltest could do. "This would never be the case if I was head of the guild." Foltest knew that now was not the time. He decided to let Naruto have his way for now. He would deal with him later. Unknown to him, the target of his anger was actually elsewhere at the moment. Naruto had sent another Kage Bushin to listen into Foltest's lecture on how to use magic for this day, while sending yet another in the library archives to read up on new books. Naruto never was fan of studying, but after all he had been through in his own world, he realized that education was good to have. Of course, he was not very happy with Foltest. In Naruto's way of seeing things, Foltest loved to talk a lot, no doubt because he thought he was better than other students and instructors, and he liked his own voice, which reminded him of the times he had to deal with Ebisu's long-winded lecture. However, Naruto thought differently about the elite Jonin sensei of his young buddy Konohamaru. But at least unlike Foltest, Ebisu's a good guy in real life. Ebisu had once been a person who looked down on him due to him being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, but after learning the water walking technique from the Jonin, he had to admit that despite Ebisu's closet pervert tendencies, he was a good teacher. And after hearing how Ebisu was willing to die than let Pain know where he was when Pain attacked Konoha, he and Ebisu had a better relationship, though Ebisu was still as professional as ever. Foltest, on the other hand, was too much of a man with too high an opinion of himself, and despite being skilled in magic, Naruto knew that he was not perfect. The guy was too strict, had too much an overinflated ego and more. That was probably why the blonde Shunin enjoyed teasing and annoying Foltest. Besides, without any form of magic, Naruto doubted he'd survive that long on his own. But he did limit his antics as he did what he could to learn as much as possible from the windbag, after filtering his rhetoric, of course. He needed as much information as he could, as he had learned that there were plenty of dangers in this world which could inhibit his chances of finding the portal that could help him speed his way home. While he had no doubt that the others back in Konoha would do all right, he was still determined to be there, since despite the defeat of Akatsuki and Madara, as well as Sasuke, there was always going to be dangers, plus his dream was yet unfulfilled. He was still a Chunin and he wanted to take the next step and accomplish his dream to be Hokage and be officially recognized as Jonin. And he was not going to accomplish it being here for the rest of his life. He wanted to make sure that he could cover all the bases before he tried anything to get back home, or even communicate with Konoha with his toad summoning contract scroll. Gamabunta was still out and being tended to by the other toads back in their home, and he recalled the fact that Gamabunta had a nasty temper when summoned for no reason. The other toads also had to deal with the injuries of the other toads and heal as well. He could summon Gamakichi, but he was not sure if it would be able to work yet. As he got off the roof and entered the hallways to head out, he felt the knowledge come to him from the two cage bushin and decided to go grab something to eat at Ophen restaurant and entertainment quarter. He was still missing ramen, but at least he could try other foods as well. And then he could go and get some free time training in his ninjutsu, taijutsu, and even try his hand at dispelling genjutsu, something he and the Kyuubi had worked on. Naruto turned and was ready for a fight and reached for a kunai from his hip pouch when he recognized the speaker to be Ayla, and he smiled in greeting her. Ayla had grown considerably in the past few months and had gone from the knobby-kneed skinny adolescent to a full-bloomed woman, and she was more than looking the part. Ayla smiled at her friend and wanted to know just what he was up to this time. Over the months, Ayla had found herself getting very attracted to the blonde student. It had made her very happy to hear that he had been able to enter the guild under Carwes's invitation, and she wanted to get his attention. And truth be told, Naruto was affected by that. After all, he was already 17 and he found women to be very attractive, and Ayla was no exception to the rule, and he was tempted to flirt back when she did, but he was still very much attached to Hinata and Sakura, who were important to him. They had become very close for the past year after all that had happened, and while the idea of being with them was very nice to his mind, he was not sure that getting into a romance with Ayla was a good idea when he would get back to his world. Still, Ayla was someone he was attracted to, and she was a good friend after all. Oh, it's just you, Ayla. What's up? Are you skipping class again? Master Foltest is going to blow a gasket if you do that again. Naruto snorted a bit and replied. I already got as much as I could from Foltest for the day. I don't think listening to him drone on again is going to do me much good anyway. But he'll have you sent to the forest to get firewood again. Naruto shrugged at that. Back in his travels with his fellow ninja, they had to learn survival in the wild, and after being with the pervy sage for a number of years on the move, he was more than skilled in handling himself in the wild. Big deal, at least I get to do something productive with my time, plus being outside of the classroom is very nice. Plus I have some privacy there too to get the chance to perfect my techniques a good deal more. Ayla sighed at that, and wished she had the adventuring spirit of her friend. Nothing would please her more than to go out on an adventure with Naruto. But she was a novice, and Naruto had accomplished quite a lot in a few months that normally took her years before she met him. He had mastered a number of high-level spells and was very creative in his ways of learning spells and making new ones, something that gained a great deal of admiration from the more relaxed and accepting instructors and students. There were those who disliked Naruto's successes, and they wanted to do what they could to learn Naruto's talents and upstage him to prove they were better. There were two of the worst ones. So, you're going to be sent to the forest to start hauling wood again, Naruto? Good. You belong in the forest with all the wild animals. Bro, that's harsh. Naruto would insult the animals if he was with them. He deserves to be elsewhere. Say the garbage dump hauling trash instead of wood. Good point, brother. Both Ayla and Naruto turned, and there before them were two of Naruto's tormentors, Garrett and his younger brother Hayden. Both twins had silver hair and deep green eyes and had been thorns on Naruto and Ayla's side for all the times he had been a student here. Garrett was the taller one as well as thinner in body strength, while Hayden was the shorter one but a bit pudgy, though not that fat in the least. Both of them sneered at the blonde Chunin, and it grated on Naruto's nerves that he had to deal with these two windbags yet again. The two had been a pain in his for a long time now, and it was getting to the point Naruto was in the mood to do something drastic and painful to the two of them for them to get the message that he had had enough of their antics for one lifetime. Garrett started first. Going out to train once more with those stupid techniques of yours, Naruto. At the rate you're going, you would be an old man before you even graduate. He's right. Maybe by the time you do graduate, Ayla would be free of your influence. Hayden gave Ayla a leering look, much to Ayla's disgust and Naruto's own temper. The younger of the twins had an unhealthy obsession with Ayla and had been trying to get her affections for some time now. Ayla flatly refused to have any sort of relationship, and Hayden didn't take too kindly to that and continued to annoy Ayla. When he showed up, he started standing up for Ayla, and that got Hayden to dislike him. Garrett was also there to annoy him, since before Garrett had once been a top student and many respected and feared him, but that all changed. I won't go out with you, Hayden, in a million years. Naruto then replied. If I were to recall, those said techniques were the reason I pounded you and your little brother to the ground last week. Garrett and Hayden growled at that, and they recalled the time they had challenged him to a 2-on-1 duel with magic, and they had made the rule of Naruto having an arcane reduction bracelet on him. Flashback. Naruto gave a growl as he held his wand while the two brothers were looking smugly at him. Garrett was before Naruto and wielding his wand that had a glowing shield, while Hayden had his wand ready to unleash his attacks from relative safety. The brothers then smiled as Naruto unleashed 3 more fireballs at them, which Garrett blocked, and both brothers taunted him. Not bad, Naruto. You were able to learn the dragon's fire blast, but thankfully we both have learned the Holy Light's shield from Master Foltest while you slept through his class and used that cloning technique of yours. This shield protects us from all attacks, and with that arcane reduction bracelet, your attacks are now at half strength. Naruto knew that to be true and decided to try an aerial attack, but got the same results, and both brothers laughed, while Foltest looked on with a smile. It was about time that Naruto got some form of punishment, and what better way to do that than to use this device. It was forbidden to use magical means to punish students in some cases, but he allowed it when Garrett and Hayden issued their challenge to Naruto. Now maybe that blonde loudmouth would learn his place. Unfortunately for them and Foltest, Naruto had not been sleeping in Foltest's class, or rather his Kage Bushin had not been sleeping in Foltest's class, so he was familiar with the spell itself, and had secretly used it before when he was able to get some free time away from the academy. He had one Kage Bushin use the wand for the spell and figured out that while the spell was able to block all attacks, it had to be directed as a shield, making it capable of only being able to protect the caster in a certain direction, and now he had an idea of how to deal with the two annoyances. He turned to Ayla and spoke to his friend as he tossed her his wand. Ayla, hold on to this for me. Ayla caught the wand, and both brothers laughed at Naruto as Garrett replied. Are you going to use that sphere technique you use a great deal? Try it. My shield will block your attacks easily, as we know you have to get close to use it. And when you do, I'm going to pound you with another barrage of attacks and you can't get to us. Both brother mages sneered at Naruto, but Naruto relaxed. They were unaware of the fact that Naruto was not going to make the mistake of charging in recklessly. He had grown more cunning and a lot more intelligent than that. He knew the shield's weakness, and he knew that unlike his former enemy and current friend Neji Hyuga, their shield couldn't cover them effectively as the 8 trigrams palm rotation technique of the Hyuga family, and he was inspired by that memory very quickly. With that in mind, Naruto summoned his Kage Bushin and then got ready. Garrett and Hayden couldn't resist the urge to taunt Naruto as they saw him make a group of 4 Kage Bushin and replied. You're using them. You use them only escape classes, Naruto. They're no good to you at all. Why don't you give up now so we'll show you some mercy? Naruto snorted and replied. Spare me your antics. You two don't know the word mercy if it came up and crawled into your asses and stayed there. Both brothers fumed, and that was what Naruto needed as he made his Rasengan, and then he and his group of Kage Bushin charged at Garrett and Hayden, with the Kage Bushin moving ahead. The brothers then attacked with Garrett handling defense while Hayden unleashed several more fireballs. 3 of the Kage Bushin took the hits and poofed away, and another moved to the ground as if hit by another fireball. They ignored that one and focused on the one carrying the sphere of light who was running towards them. The two got ready to counter as Naruto got closer. But to their surprise, Naruto vanished in a puff of smoke tea, and then they were greeted by the sounds of tearing earth beneath them, and before they could react, Naruto appeared and then gave the 2 of them uppercuts to the chin and sent them flying. Naruto then ran up the nearby wall with ease, and he summoned several more Kage Bushin, and then he unleashed an aerial version of his Uzumaki Renden on the 2, kicking them higher and higher until he and a handful of Kage Bushin performed the spinning heel drop that slammed hard into both Garrett and Hayden, and the 2 of them crashed hard into the ground. When the dust settled, both twins were bruised and aching in places they never knew they had, and the only thing they could see was Naruto glaring at the 2 of them with a smile as his Kage Bushin did the same before they poofed away as they fell unconscious. Naruto had actually been the one that fell to the ground and used a cage bushin to take his place on the ground and had dug his way to both Garrett and Hayden from underneath, mirroring the same method he had used to beat Neji in the Chunin exams, and the one using the Rasengan was actually a cage bushin in his place, showing that he had grown a lot more in tactics since his youth. Ayla cheered and so did the other students who were in good terms with the blonde Chunin. From his vantage point, Foltest was fuming mad and he was flabbergasted. Even with the arcane reduction bracelet, Naruto still won, and that fact raised his temper to the point he lost his cool. How can he have won with that bracelet on? That arcane reduction bracelet should have rendered him weaker than even a novice. I allowed that to be used by Garrett and Hayden to punish that blonde dolt, and he still won. It was then that Foltest wished he had kept silent for at that moment. Foltest, perhaps you would like to explain something to me and Master Carwes about this recent escapade of yours. Foltest gulped, and there was Master Carwes and Head Priestess Jenny, and both of them were not in a very good mood. Jenny was naturally the first to speak. You actually allowed the use of an arcane reduction bracelet even if such methods is forbidden by the rules of the guild. You realize you are skirting the edges of being expelled from this guild for that. Carwes then spoke. I made the rule of not using magical means to punish students clear for years now. Foltest, explain to me why you have allowed this against my direct orders. Foltest gulped while Garrett and Hayden were taken away to be treated in the infirmary. End of flashback. Garrett spoke first. That was nothing more than a fluke. You cheated in that duel. Ayla was naturally outraged and spoke. That is enough. How can Naruto even cheat when he had an arcane reduction bracelet on? And there were two of you to begin with. If anyone here are cheaters, it's you two. Garrett and Hayden growled, and they knew that there was no way they could get their edges in. They had tried everything to learn how Naruto was able to get to the level he was now. Both of them were from a well-known family of mages, and they had expected to be graduating with top honors, and they had been in the Magic Guild longer than the others and had seniority over both Naruto and Ayla. They were respected and feared, until the two of them showed up. Ayla was a very intelligent woman and had a great degree of knowledge and skills, surprising many guild instructors and other students with her knowledge of magical artifacts, potions, ancient languages and more. Naruto was known not just for his unusual skills and combat abilities, but his amazing ability to learn high-level spells and make new ones from previously learned spells in a matter of time that was astonishing, making a very skilled magic user despite being younger than them. It had reached a point that the brothers wanted to do everything in their power to have them removed from the Magic Guild, and Hayden wanted to have Ayla for himself. At first they had a slightly easier time with Ayla, but when Naruto told her to stand up for herself and she followed her friend's advice, they had to be cautious, since Ayla was using her intellect against them while Naruto used his cunning and his abilities that still mystified them. Garrett had enough and turned away wordlessly while Hayden followed him. That left Naruto and Ayla alone, and Ayla sighed as she held Naruto's arm and came a bit closer to him and spoke to Naruto. I wish those two would just leave you and me alone. They have their own studies to consider and not waste time annoying you or me. You said it, Ayla. I don't know what's with them, but I can bet they really have an axe to grind on me, but I've got better things to worry about than those two. Ayla smiled at that and she blushed a bit, and that made Naruto curious as to why she was blushing. He was not that dense after all, and he spoke to Ayla. Hey, you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Say, are you going to be busy later? Naruto had a feeling that with what he had in mind for his training, he would be busy, and as much as he would like to go out on a date with Ayla, now wasn't the time. Besides, he still had to meet Ayla's parents, and the last he wanted was to make a bad impression on the folks. I think so. No doubt old windbag Foltest is going to try to run me ragged again. See you, Ayla. With that, Naruto left to get ready for the inevitable shouting barrage that was going to come for the elderly mage. In the forest, after cutting down the amount of firewood needed and placing them into the cart provided to him by the guild's stable master, Naruto had finally settled the targets for his latest training exercise of the day, and he was eager to test the newly made kunai he had on hand. This was basic training, but he was still eager to see just how much he had improved over the past few months while stuck in this new world. The throwing daggers were nice, but felt more comfortable with kunai in hand, and as soon as he was ready, he got a fair distance from the forest and looked at the sun. He planned to get this routine down before nightfall. That was when the monsters were usually out. He found the various types of monsters in the archives to be rather interesting. He was very curious if there were actually dragons wandering about and wondered how tough one was in a fight. As soon as he finished with that train of thought, he went to work and ran through the obstacle course that he had set up. The obstacle course had all the right number of traps and targets that he had to deal with back home, and some were also including target dummies for close range and long range. As he moved through the paces, he began to recall all of his training in his time back in his world as he leapt over trees, rocks and ran over water while throwing shuriken and kunai at each target, and then even summoning his Kage Bushin to help him create his Rasengan attacks and used them for both close range and mid-range attacks. Naruto finally reached the final target and was ready to unleash his trump card jutsu, having perfected it a bit more since his last usage of it in his battles with Madara. But just as he was about to unleash it, the Kyuubi spoke to him. "Hold it, Kit, we're not alone." Naruto stopped the move and quickly looked about, and then seeing that his observer was not showing up, he wondered if it was Garrett and Hayden, but felt that they were not there. They had a unique chakra signature, and the one he was sensing was not the two idiots. With that in mind, he spoke. "Whoever you are, I suggest you show yourself. I know you're here." Naruto was about to reach his kunai when the voice of a female spoke out. "Stop. I am coming out." Naruto turned, and there before him appeared a blonde woman with long pointed ears and a very slender and somewhat buxom figure. That was when he was now facing one of the races he had been able to read about in the library of the guild. "Wow, you're an elf, aren't you?" Celestia nodded as she studied the young man before her. At the age of 84, by human standards, she would already be an old woman, but elves were immortal and didn't age the way humans did, and such were more attuned with nature and the spirit world than most humans. In elven reckoning, however, Celestia was still very much a young adolescent, though her figure said otherwise in human eyes. She was armed with a slender elven short sword for defense along with a knife, and wore a strong enchanted vest of leather and mail for protection. She had been out on patrol and to gather herbs for salves and potions when she heard the commotion and felt something different in the air. She stayed out of sight until she saw the young man moving through the obstacle course. And in that moment, she found herself intrigued by the young human. This human possessed considerable power in terms of the arcane, and also she sensed a great deal of energy within him that was unlike anything she had seen before. Not to mention that fact, for a human, he wasn't bad looking. She had seen the glowing blue sphere that he used in close combat and also as a throwing weapon. It was something she had never seen before and was amazed at the energy that she felt from it. However, she was curious as to how he was able to sense her despite her concealing spell. "I am an elf, that is true, but how were you able to sense me?" Naruto shrugged as he replied. "Your chakra stands out a lot." What did you say?" "Your chakra energy. You have a lot of it and it's not hard to track. That concealing spell works well when hiding from normal eyes, but it doesn't filter chakra out very well." "What energy are you talking about?" Naruto sighed and knew that chakra was very much unknown, and he decided that explaining it was not going to be enough for the elf before him, but before he could start, he wanted to know just who she was. "Look, before we go any further on the matter of explaining, why don't we introduce ourselves to one another? My name is Naruto Uzumaki." Celestia. "All right then. You want to know what chakra is, right?" Naruto then explained it as much as he could to the elf as Celestia listened intently to his words, and she was surprised to hear about this chakra. She had been familiar with white, black and shamanistic magic, but never chakra, and when Naruto revealed his chakra that was flowing out like blue light, she was further intrigued. But things were cut short between the two as shouts came for Naruto to hurry up. No doubt Foltest had sent some students to keep an eye on him. When Naruto turned to reply, Celestia took her leave, and Naruto was surprised to see her gone, but placed that aside as he packed up and got all his kunai and shuriken and left to get to the cart. Celestia had to admit that this young man Naruto was interesting indeed, and she had a feeling that what she had seen him do was but a fraction of his abilities. For a human, he's interesting. A few weeks later, "You're going on a journey?" Ayla asked with considerable surprise as Naruto packed away his things. The blonde Chunin had gathered enough information to go out and find out if the information could help him in finding a way home. Naruto turned and knew that Ayla was not happy to see him go, and he wanted to stay a bit longer, but the leads he found were too promising for him to ignore for long. "I found some things that I need to check out, plus I need to head back home and say hello to my family back home." Ayla wished she could go with Naruto and meet his family, but with her studies being here in Ophen, she couldn't leave and it hurt to know that she was not going to get her chance at being close to Naruto, and that was not something she liked a lot, and she couldn't help but wish he stayed a lot longer. But you're almost there. A few more weeks and you can. Ayla, I have to do this. This wasn't meant to be a permanent thing after all. But, Naruto sighed and held Ayla's hand and spoke. Listen, I learned a lot here in the guild and you have been a great friend to me, and so have Carwes Sensei and Miss Jenny as well, but I have to go and find my way in this world, and if I can, see my own family and friends. But don't worry so much. I plan to visit when I can and I'll write letters every now and then, all right. Ayla sniffled and held back her tears, and Naruto decided to give her something to remember him by. Here, I have something for you. Ayla looked and Naruto took out a small plate of metal on a short band of soft but durable leather with clasps, and on the metal, which was silver, was the symbol of Konoha on it. Ayla gasped at the gift, as that was very much pure grade silver, and Naruto then placed it on her right arm and placed it there. Take this, Ayla. You know I'll be back as long as you have it on, okay? Ayla ran her hand on the silver bracelet and smiled at Naruto as she wiped her tears and hugged him, happy to be given this gift. It wasn't a wedding present or an engagement ring as her fantasies had hoped, but it was nice enough for her that Naruto made it for her. Naruto hugged her right back afterwards and bid her farewell, and she kissed him on the cheek, right on his whisker marks, making Naruto blush a bit more. You promise? Of course. I am going to be Hokage someday, so I will keep a promise that I make to those I care about. Ayla smiled. She had been told what Hokage meant, and it was a term given to the leader in Naruto's homeland, and if there was one thing that she knew to be true. In the headmaster's room. So you're off to find your answers, Naruto. Naruto nodded to Master Carwes, and the two of them hugged one another as Carwes became like a father figure to Naruto, and as soon as they parted, Carwes smiled as he looked the young man over. Though he had been here only a year, Naruto had become a very skilled mage with exceptional talents, though some parts of his abilities in magic was a bit spotty at best. Nevertheless, the young man's desire to succeed and his will to work hard to reach his goals were more than enough to make him a great mage. Carwes then moved to his desk and removed a new wand and handed it to Naruto. Naruto was somewhat surprised at that. You're giving me a new wand. Wasn't I supposed to get this after I graduate? Naruto, the way I see it, you are more than ready to wield this wand, and if you need a new one, you'll have to be patient. It's not easy getting wands, you know. Naruto nodded and then bowed to Carwes, and Carwes bowed back. In the temple of Miley. Hello, Miss Jenny. Jenny turned to see the blonde ninja fully dressed and ready to go, and she smiled at Naruto. Naruto had been teaching her how to use her chakra in a way that was similar to a medic nin, and she had reciprocated with teaching him the art of the sword, and it was something she figured he would add with his arsenals when he was there to train himself, and when he set his kage bushin to her for training. Jenny, like Carwes, had been told by Naruto about the power of the kage bushin jutsu and admitted that such a technique was truly powerful, and it made them respect Naruto for his willingness to use such a method despite the risks. The two of them hugged one another as she knew that Naruto was going out to find what he could to get the materials, devices and resources to get back him. Naruto was one of her best students in the art of sword play as well as in the art of first aid. I am going to miss you, Naruto. Don't worry, Miss Jenny. Considering all I have learned from you and Carwes Sensei, I am more than able to handle myself. Jenny laughed a bit and then took out a gift-wrapped bundle. Here, I had this personally made for you to use when the time is right. Naruto opened the bundle and saw that Jenny's gift was a katana. The sword was long, almost like the blade of a samurai, but was straight and had a small hand guard that was in a circular design, almost the same as the same sword Sasuke used to have, but there was a fox head on the pommel and there were flame patterns on the flat of the blade. It was made from specially tempered and hardened steel as well as very well sharpened. He admired the blade and then placed it back into the sheath and placed it on his back alongside his scroll for toad summoning through the long strap there, and the two of them bowed to one another. As soon as he got everything done, Naruto moved out of the gates of Ophen to see the rest of the world he was in, as well as find answers on how to return home. A few months later, the setting sun was on the forest and all seemed peaceful, unless one ignored the fact that a person was banging on what appeared to be a heavy stone slab. The sounds that came from it were not the kind associated with solid stone, as echoes were heard. The holder of the dagger, a young petite woman wearing a tied-on top, short vest, skirt, thigh-high covers with leather shoes in them as well as a belt, turned to her comrades and spoke. Yep, Hollow as a casket this one, and 5 more if I'm wrong. So it's just as we suspected. The new speaker was a blonde woman with long hair and wore a cap with a short green cape, as well as a flowing white robe, dress and boots as well as some jewelry. The outfit was very much similar to the clothes worn by those of the priestesses of Miley, and she was one herself, not to mention a certain chest size. The other woman, the smaller one who was no doubt a thief by trade and profession, spoke to her comrades. There's a chance this ruin is some treasure worth our while, but I prefer we have something more agreeable than good faith to believe in. Meryl does have a point. Can you find a way to break the door open, Jeannie? The woman in question was a tall woman wearing a long cape made of dark brown leather, and wore some light but very serviceable clothes, and had a massive broadsword on her back as well as a smaller but no less lethal longsword strapped to her hip. She wore boots and had the muscles of a strong bodybuilder but leaner and certainly not as large, as well an impressive bust to add to the whole picture, along with some sort of tattoo on her left cheek. Her hair was deep red and her skin was tanned bronze as well. She shook her head and replied, I doubt it, Melissa. Even I can't lift a slab of stone that size. Anyway, you can do something about it, Meryl. Nope. Unless I pick at it for a solid straight week. Or we could try and find ourselves a magician and be able to go in, get the treasure and be back at Ophen before the happy hour in the bar is over. Melissa replied at that. There is a problem with the idea of us getting a magician. Neither of us has that level of power, and all my spells are centered on healing cures, defense and countering undead, not destroying solid stone. It was then that a large number of goblins arrived, and Melissa quickly got out her warhammer and Jeannie drew her sword while Meryl threw her daggers, but the weapons were forced out of the goblins and they knew that now was not the right time to be out there. After they agreed to head back to Ophen and get some food and drink and find a mage, they moved into fight while Melissa prayed to Miley to protect them in battle. The three, however, decided to go separately in order to avoid getting caught in a bad situation and made their way to Ophen on their own terms. Elsewhere in the forest, a certain blonde ninja heard some very loud noises that were certainly the signs of fighting, and he wondered just what that was all about. But focused on heading back to Ophen, he was a day early but decided to relax before seeing Isla the next night. He had some stuff to take care of after all. In Ophen, restaurant and entertainment district. Man, what a trip. At least I hope Damien's bar is still open. Naruto headed towards one of the restaurants he normally frequents in this part of the district, and he was in the mood to grab some good food and then head off to get the latest news from the merchants who plied their trades in Ophen. He had done his business with a small printing shop and had a lot of gold to save and use, and was in the mood for a good meal. He had his wand on his back and his other times at the ready as well. However, he was hoping to finally have some good food to eat. He was still dressed in his usual attire of orange and black, and his long coat with red and black. He had his scroll on and his other gear as well as his sword on his back. However, he heard a shout, and then a moment later, a man wearing knight's apprentice armor and carrying a sword was sent flying out of the window, and Naruto gave the guy a quick looking over. Definitely an apprentice knight, and he looked through the window and saw that the bar before his usual haunt had gotten into a brawl. As he walked in, he spotted the people who apparently were the ones responsible for the situation before him. One he recognized quickly by the cape, hat, robes, and orange sash as a priestess of Miley, and not a very bad looking one too. Blonde hair, violet eyes, and a very attractive face and figure. Though Naruto could tell that she was serious in what she does as a priestess, he made it a note to ask Miss Jenny just who she was, since as far as she knew, he had not seen her before when he would be passing into the temple on his training sessions with Jenny. The other one, who appeared to be tall, was very well muscled, and amazingly enough for a woman with a muscular frame like that, she had a rather large bust. Her skin was tanned and she had her red hair in a long braid tail at the back, and quite the outfit, and there was a tattoo on her left cheek as well. Regardless, Naruto could tell from her posture that she knew how to use a sword and was physically strong, and judging by the look in her eyes, she was a skilled fighter, probably a former soldier or mercenary type. The last one was a shorter girl, and she was limber and petite, but from the way she held her knife, he could tell that she knew how to use it, and while she didn't have the same muscular build as the sword wielder, she was strong and nimble, no doubt a thief from the way she moved. He had an encounter with thieves before, and while he had not taken into stealing things back when he was a ninja, he had to admit that meeting thieves was a bit of an annoyance every now and then. They were currently facing several guys who were dressed in the same fashion as the guy he saw that got tossed out the window, and no doubt the man was booted out by the tanned sword lady with the muscles. He turned to the bar owner and asked the question. Hey Hughes, what's going on here? The barkeeper turned and replied. Bad news Naruto. The ladies had walked in and were about to grab something to drink and eat when some of those night apprentices, the guys took it personal and tried to pick a fight, and well, you know how it goes. Naruto nodded at that and decided to get a bit closer, and his eyes narrowed when the knights took out their swords and so did the lady. Okay, this is getting serious. You want to get involved, Kit? Only if I have to Kyuubi. It was then that the news of the city watch coming in had broken the atmosphere as some men began to panic at the thought of being arrested, even they were mere spectators and some ran. One of them managed to push Naruto and he tried to right himself. Unfortunately for Naruto, the man who had knocked him aside had also sent him in the direction of one of the women, namely the blonde-haired Miley priestess, and he hit her, with his face first between her and his hands on her hips. When he looked up, he found himself looking at Melissa, who was quite shocked by this sudden turn of events. Naturally, Melissa's reaction was far from pleasant. Ah, what are you doing? Naruto backed away and tried to speak. As Melissa covered her and glared at him, he knew that while it was an accident, women could read it the wrong way, then he would be in trouble. Hey, that was an accident. I got hit by. Both Jeannie and Meryl were quite shocked at how blatantly that new arrival had just manhandled their comrade, and in the most indecent way too. You disgusting pig. You perverted idiot. Naruto looked at the two and replied with a slight glare. That was an accident. Someone knocked me over and I was caught off guard and lost my balance. Unfortunately, the inner resident he had in his body was not making things easy. That might have been an accident, but you got to admit, that blonde priestess is well stacked. Even that tanned red-haired lady is as well. Maybe you should try. Are you out of your mind, you crazy fox? We are not going to do that. Really now? Yes. Now shut it, you darn perverted demon. I'm a pervert. Need I remind you of the time you had another one of those wet dreams of your involving your pink-haired teammate, the white-eyed Hyuga girl, and a few others? Now you even have that red-haired fiend of yours plus that elf babe. Shut up. The men there were shocked, and some of the men who were going to fight Jeannie were stunned, and then they started speaking. Did you see that? Of course I saw it. But wow, that's gutsy. Yeah, doing that to a priestess of Miley of all things, and in public too. That guy looks like a mage from the guild. What's he doing here? Naruto had no idea how to get out of this one as the one with the sword looked at him. He knew that the only time he would fight back with this woman was when she would strike first. Until then he would try to reason with them before he would fight. Naruto was not above fighting women, having fought with female ninja before when he was younger, and he was not impressed with the idea that men were better than women. That sort of talk was foolish in his mind. That was because he had grown up in a world where women were quite capable in a fight, and he had seen female ninja do things that male ninja couldn't do. Jeannie looked at the man before her and was ready to attack when he spoke. Look, I said what I did was an accident. Stop talking and get out of my sight, unless you actually have the guts to fight without magic. Naruto glared and replied. I take it you don't plan on listening to reason then. Fine, try me. Let's see if you can back up your words, swordswoman. Jeannie readied her sword and attacked. Big mistake. Naruto ducks the sword strike and then knees Jeannie in the gut and sends his fist to her chin and sends her flying back into the wall with a crash in the wall. He had also disarmed her of her sword and then caught it deftly by the handle and then tossed it to her, and the blade landed on the wall, blade first into the wall. Melissa and Meryl gasped while the men were stunned. Did you see that? That guy just floored that woman without much effort. I thought mages fought with magic. Naruto sighed and replied to Jeannie, who was out cold for a moment or two. You should let people explain their side first before trying to cut them down, lady. You asked for that. Meryl looked at Naruto and thought at what she had seen. Who is this guy? He might be a mage, but I've never heard of a mage fighting with fists and feet before. But that guy knocked Jeannie back. She got angry and attacked Naruto. You jerk. Naruto knew that the chance to resolve this was out the window and he had to defend himself. Meryl launched a kick at him, but Naruto quickly moves away and drops to the floor and then lashed out with a sweep kick and sends Meryl to the ground with a thump to her butt, and she groaned as Naruto stood up once more. The others then looked at that and replied. This guy is really different. There's no way he's an ordinary mage. It was then that he was facing Melissa, who was looking at him in a very angry way. It was to be expected as she had seen him manhandle her comrades. How dare you hit a woman? Melissa moved and was about to slap Naruto, but he was quick to respond and grabbed her head just as it was about to hit his face, and he pulled her closer to her surprise and he replied simply. Your friend was about to cut me down before I could try and explain what happened. Was an accident, priestess. What was I supposed to do? Let her cut me down for trying to defend myself? That is plain foolish and stupid. Get your friends away from here. This fight is over. Melissa gasped at that, and it was then that the city watch was coming. Naruto knew that now was not the time to be caught, and with that, he released Melissa and quickly moved out of the building, leaving Melissa alone and Genie recovering and rubbing her jaw and her stomach, and Meryl rubbing her butt to relieve the pain. Naruto quickly got to roof of the buildings and headed for his home in Ophen. He needed to relax and wait for the next day to meet Ayla. This had become one of his most interesting nights, and he wondered just what the three women were doing there. He could tell that they were an adventuring party and meant that they were looking for S new member, and considering the fact they were all female, they wanted a female mage on their side. He placed those thoughts aside for the moment and focused on other matters. Elsewhere, Melissa and her comrades were resting in a hotel, and the three women were not in the best of moods. Melissa had been able to clear things up with the city watch guards, and the men who had attacked them were sent to prison, but the three had to rest and they drank their drinks in their room. Genie placed down her mug and growled. When I see that blonde mage, I am going to lop his head off. Meryl nodded as she twirled her daggers. I'm going to make his butt look like a pin cushion for what he did to me. Melissa merely thought about what to do now, and she replied. At least we are in the clear. However, we still have to deal with the fact that we need a mage to help us get into the ruin. Meryl then replied. I heard there's another pub that magicians from the guild go to. We can got there and hire a mage. The others agreed, and then they went to sleep, and they were going to do their best to forget the incident with the unknown mage unless they were going to beat the tar out of him. The next day, Ayla drank her drink and enjoyed it for all it was worth as she wondered when her friend Naruto would arrive. He had sent her a letter that he was coming back to see how things were back in Ophen as well as gather some more gear to go do some work. She hoped that he would stay longer when he did arrive, that way she could. Excuse me, miss. Ayla turned and there were three women looking at her. One appeared to be a swordswoman, the other was a priestess of Miley, and the other appeared to be a thief of some sort. Yes. Can I help you? Meryl was the one who spoke first. We were here to ask if you are a magician. I am. Why, is there something you need from me? Melissa nodded and spoke. Yes, we would like to speak to you about some important. Is it all right if we sit down? Sure. Meryl, Melissa, and Genie sat down and Meryl spoke to Ayla. We're a band of adventurers raiding ruins. Ayla was impressed and spoke with some measure of awe. Wow, really? I kid you not. That's so cool. I really am envious of you guys. I bet you have found lots of treasure and artifacts already. The three groaned, unwilling to admit that their adventures had not turned up a lot, and then Melissa spoke to Ayla. There is something important that we like to ask you, miss, about the whole adventure. If you find any more artifacts, I would gladly buy them off you for a fair price. Genie shook her head and spoke. Actually, we came here to ask you if you would like to join us for our adventures. We recently found a ruin and need to see if there is any treasure there, but we need a mage to help us open it. Ayla was surprised and gave a sad look. As much as I would love to go on an adventure with you all, I'm sorry to say that I can't leave my studies and I am only a novice, so I won't be of much good for you to take to this ruin you found. The three groaned once more and were deflated by the fact that they were not going to get Ayla's support for their adventures. After their bad experiences, they were hoping for some more good luck. Ayla then had a thought and smiled at Genie, Melissa, and Meryl. I do know of someone who could help you. My friend Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto's a very skilled magic user and is Master Carwes's personally sponsored student in the Magic Guild. Master Carwes personally invited Naruto to enter the guild because of Naruto's potential and talents, and Naruto's been quite a student of magic ever since joining the guild. Both Genie and Melissa were impressed. For this Naruto to be handpicked by Carwes himself spoke highly of the lady's ability, though the name she had was odd. Really? This Naruto was handpicked by Master Carwes himself. This Naruto must be a capable magician. Oh yes, Naruto loves to go on adventures and has been at it for months now and has even a battle name. The name is Hokage, I think. Meryl was confused at that and asked. Hokage? What does that mean? Ayla thought it over and replied. Where Naruto is from, I think it means Fire Shadow. Naruto is skilled in several high-level combat spells and has some of special spells in reserve for special occasions. Naruto's also skilled with a sword and has been adventuring for some time now. Naruto's going to meet me here so you can probably get Naruto to help you unlock this ruin you found. Melissa and the others smiled at that. From what they had heard from Ayla, this Naruto would prove to be a very helpful addition to their all-female team. Great. This Naruto sounds just like the one we need to complete our team. Genie nodded and spoke. So when do we meet her? Melissa also nodded. Yes, this woman friend of yours sounds like very much like a blessing from Miley himself. Ayla was surprised at that. They thought Naruto was a woman. It was then that she heard a familiar, exuberant and high-energy voice. Hey Ayla. Great to see you again. Ayla turned and she replied with a happy smile. Naruto. The three women blanched as they heard that voice, the voice of a certain someone they had no desire to ever meet again. They thought that they heard wrong, but when they looked, they spotted a certain blonde Shunin from Konoha who wore orange and black, had a forehead protector on his head with the symbol of Konoha on it, a red long coat with black flames and a massive scroll on his back along with a set of pouches on his back and left thigh and his katana as well. The three of them stood up and both Genie and Meryl shouted while Melissa looked at Naruto with shocked eyes. You. Naruto gave a look in their direction and gave a slight look of surprise and mixed with wariness. You three again. Genie and Meryl were quick to grab their weapons and both of them were more than ready to fight Naruto, who was remaining calm. The other mages in the bar were quick to take notice of the situation and they were quick to get away. Many of them were former classmates of the blonde shinobi, mage of Konoha, and they had a feeling that whoever these people were, things were going to get very ugly in the next few minutes. Ayla looked rather surprised by all this, and seeing that Melissa and company were eyeing Naruto as if he was a target they wanted to beat into submission, she made a very accurate guess. I take it you've met them before, Naruto. Oh yeah, and not in the best of circumstances. Meryl spoke first. You perverted goat. Don't think we've forgotten how you touched Melissa in public. Naruto slapped his forehead and glared at Meryl. I said it before and I'll say it again. What happened before was a damn accident. Genie growled once more and began to draw out her sword. That was enough to get things even more distressful, and then Melissa spoke to the others. Genie, Meryl, let's settle this without incident, all right? I don't think a standoff with the city watch is a good idea tonight. Both of the two members of Melissa's group began to relax a bit and both were still glaring at Naruto, and Ayla then turned to Naruto and spoke to her longtime friend. While Naruto was something of a mystery to her at times, she knew for a fact that her friend was not the kind of person to just grab someone intentionally, though she made sure not to say that she wanted him to do that to her. Naruto. They were asking to hire mage to help them with a ruin that appears to be sealed by magic, so I suggested that they. No way are we letting some pervert join our group. Meryl snarled and Genie glared and Melissa spoke with a slightly hard look at Naruto. I'm sorry miss, but I am afraid that your friend Naruto can't be part of our group due to his actions the night before when he first came to our attention. Ayla wondered just why they were hostile towards Naruto and decided to figure it out at a much later date. However, she decided to stand up for her friend. Long after he had left, she had gathered a greater deal of self-confidence in herself as she had learned a lot from being with her friend in the guild. I don't know how this all happened, but I have to stress out that Naruto is the only magician who can be able to help you. While there are already graduate, many of them have not been in adventures as Naruto has, and Naruto is the most seasoned one when it comes to being out of the guild. The three looked Naruto over and Melissa decided to think it all over at a much better time. However, Genie and Meryl were not having any of it and they were still recalling how Naruto had defeated the two of them when they first met. Genie's thoughts on how he had knocked her out still made her angry, while Meryl was itching for a chance to pay Naruto back for knocking to her butt the last night. Naruto, however, was calmer than the others. All he had been through had taught him to at least have a good level of self-control, and he relaxed himself once more and spoke directly to Melissa. I made it quite clear last night that I had no ill will towards you when that happened, and that it was an accident. Do I look like the kind of guy to go wandering about groping a woman at random? Naruto was correct about that. After knowing that Hinata loved him and she was alive and safe after he had gone ballistic when she had been wounded by pain, he had been more open with her and eventually the two of them had gotten very close, and Sakura was very supportive of it, and eventually the two kunoichi had been very important to him, which was why despite being tempted by other attractive women, especially Ayla, he did his best to resist the urge to do something untoward her despite his male side egging him on to do it already, and the perverted Kyuubi was not helping matters either. Melissa thought it over and replied, "Very well. However, I must still stress that I cannot have you as a member of this party at the moment. We'll find another way to open the sealed doors." Naruto quickly expressed some interest at the mention of sealed doors and turned to Ayla. "Sealed door, huh? Was there any telltale signs of who left the seal on it?" "Well, they haven't given me any details on what sort of door they were talking about." Naruto then turned to the three and asked them a question. "What were the markings on the door? Any particular symbol on the doors that you can tell me?" The three looked at one another and Melissa spoke for the others. "I am afraid not. The door is covered a large stone slab that restricted us to see just what sort of symbols the door had." Naruto gave a sigh and thought it over. While Naruto was interested in money like most people, and he actually was very good in keeping money as well as getting it, he was not in it just for the wealth. He needed the money to locate the magical artifacts that he needed to find a way home back to Konoha. The money would help in a great deal in getting all the information he needed, such as buying maps, paying sources, and doing the usual, greasing the wheels of commerce, as the pervy sage used to put it in. Besides that, he had already found a few ways to get money when he was not adventuring and visiting ruins and gathering treasure, and those was very lucrative, and it attracted the right kind of attention and not the wrong kind. He could have hired off his services as a ninja for espionage and assassination, as he had gotten somewhat accustomed to those aspects of being a ninja, but chose not to. It would have been asking for trouble if they found out that he was from Ophen. That could have resulted in some serious problems or even wars. After hearing Pain's side of the story when he attacked Konoha, he was not in the mood to have wars happen on his world. It was hard task to find peace, but he would find it, as both Jiraiya and his father the fourth Hokage believed in him, and he was not going to be the instigator of a war here on this world. Wars had a way of creating monsters, and not the mystical kind. Pain was a good example of man turning into a monster because of war and the hatred it breeds in the end of it. That was why when the option of taking up the role of an assassin came up, he refused it outright. There were guys in this world he would love to get rid of, but he knew doing that was asking for trouble. And since the week was getting a bit dull, some excitement was in order, and considering the fact that this was a chance to find more things that could help him get home, or at least see home, he was more than willing to go at it. Besides, he more than enough money for the next few months, so this adventure would prove a good distraction until he got a chance to check out the guild's archives for some more information. "All right, here's a deal. If you let me take a look at the door and let me find a way to open the sealed door, then whatever ordinary treasure you can find, keep it. The only thing I want is to have any magical items or objects there that I can use." Meryl looked at Naruto with some level of confusion. She had a feeling that there was something odd about his request for them to give him any magical items. Most mages would have wanted treasure, but this guy wanted none of that and only wanted the magical artifact. Something was not right about that, and she decided to think that idea over. Melissa then spoke. "You do know how to open the sealed door. Let me take a look at what sort of magical seal that door's got and I'll see to opening it up." Jeannie was not entirely convinced and decided to dig up as much as she could on this Naruto that could prove to be helpful in figuring out if he was a good mage or not. Melissa wished that there was more to go on, but seeing as they had no other options at the moment, she decided to chance it for the time being. It would still be a number of days before she had to meet up with Jenny for an important announcement. She knew that her group needed the money badly. Jeannie needed to pay off the tax collectors, and so did Meryl, and that was something that they all had to work on. "All right then, we'll meet you a few days from now." As the three left, the atmosphere seemed to calm down, and then Ayla turned to Naruto and asked, "What exactly happened between you and the three of them to be so hostile to you?" Naruto gave a sigh and told Ayla the whole thing, and by the end of it, Ayla had to admit that she could see why the three were not very happy with the idea of him coming along, but she was not very happy with the way the others looked at him. In all the time she known the blonde shinobi mage, he was not the kind to just pick fights unless he was attacked first. "Well, I can understand their reactions, but you did say it was an accident and you were defending yourself." "I know, I could have said no to the whole thing and walked off, but when I got insulted, well, things kind of go a different way. Besides, it's going to be all right since some exercise is in order, and I have a feeling this just might be what I need to get some fun. Besides, I have been meaning to brush up on some techniques and spells anyway, and this is good practice before I hit the books in the guild again. I've been busy keeping to looking for answers to some questions that I think I've gotten rusty, so some good exercise is in order. Isla didn't suppress the smile on her face. While she could never understand why he always preferred to be outside of the classroom, she couldn't deny the results. He might not have graduated from the guild officially, but in her mind, Naruto's uncanny abilities were more than adequate, plus she knew that his other abilities were more than adequate in a fight. After all, she had seen them firsthand. Naruto himself was not kidding about his ability to open the sealed door that Melissa and company had to deal with. Having been familiar with the rune language due to his use of Kage Bushin when in the libraries in the guild, he had gained a good degree of understanding of magic as well as one how to deal with sealed doors. There were elemental binding spells that he had heard of, along with locking spells. He might not know all of the forms of magic, but he was ever practical now that he was older. He still kept a number of reserved techniques and abilities, as well as spells in combat. He still had his sexy no jutsu, and truth be told, he had not gotten rid of it, still using on more than one occasion, and it could be helpful as well. As the two of them relaxed a bit more, the blonde shinobi mage had a feeling that things were going to be interesting soon enough. In a hut outside of Ophen, Melissa and the others were having a discussion on their latest situation with a certain blonde shinobi mage. I can't believe we have to be saddled with him. Are you sure about what you are doing, Melissa? Melissa sighed and replied, it's not like we have much choice. Master Carwes is not going to let his students leave their studies behind, and considering that Miss Isla's words appear to be correct, we have no choice in the matter. What about Eugenie? What do you think? I don't think it's a good idea to have that lout with us, honestly. I checked it out and it seems he's something of a truant and troublemaker in the school. He's never officially graduated from the guild, so I have a good deal of doubt on his abilities, though it's said he performs very well enough to not be expelled as well as have good grades. Melissa placed some thought into that and recalled that Isla said that Naruto was personally handpicked by Carwes, and the fact that the head mage of the Magic Guild had sponsored Naruto himself was still there in her mind, so there must be truth to Isla's statements about Naruto being very talented. I guess you have a point. Still, Miss Isla was not lying as far as I can sense about his abilities as a mage, so it does raise the question about how he can be a truant and still be handpicked by Master Carwes himself. As I understand it, getting handpicked by Carwes is considered a very rare honor, so he must have a degree of talent. Jeannie couldn't dispute that, and then Isla had an idea. Why don't we test him when we go out to the ruins then? That way we can see if he's got the magic to back up his words. The others looked at Meryl and she outlined her plans, and when the young thief was done, Jeannie and Melissa thought about it even more, and then Jeannie replied. Are you sure about that, Meryl? You realize that we're already low on funds as it is. I know, but this is a good way to see if this guy is as good as his friend says. Plus, if he proves to be a liability, we can just dump him and find a better mage to help us if we ever go on other adventures later on while we're here. Still, this plan is going to be expensive and we're going to need a lot of our savings. Melissa then recalled something important. By the way, I hope to plan to take the day off for now since the ritual of revealing is coming up tomorrow. What? The ritual of revealing? It's one of the most revered rituals in the Church of Miley. We spend some time in the presence of Miley and then the war god will reveal to us who is the valiant champion we shall serve to better his name. I've heard that it's very serious. Oh yes. I plan to pray to Miley for a valiant, brave, gentlemanly champion who might prove to be a lot better than all the others. Meryl recognized the sight before her and groaned. Oh no, not this again. Jeannie nodded, and while Melissa was in La La Land in her dreams of meeting her valiant champion, they talked about this particular quirk that Melissa had. She was their friend and a good priestess of Miley and was a great healer as well, but due to the fact that she was very naive and also dreamed a lot, she had this desire to find the perfect man, and both Jeannie and Meryl know that there was no such thing as a perfect man from previous experience, but they could never convince Melissa of that, and as much as they disliked it, they did nothing to change that. However, if Melissa did get the right hero to help them in the rest of their adventures, then all the better, as they could get someone to complete their group, and if they got lucky and found a female mage, then all the better for them all. In the guild dormitory, Naruto was currently in his room and was busy running his hands on his set of kunai and was busy thinking about what he was agreeing to for the next few days. This new adventure might be the thing to get rid of the boredom, and give him some time to think on the next journey to find a way back to Konoha. He had no doubts in his mind that his friends and family were worried sick ever since he had disappeared and landed into this world. Hinata was worried no doubt, and so was Sakura, along with his other friends and allies. That was why he was willing to go on this adventure, to get one step closer to finding the chance to get home. Of course it would take time and he would have to tell Ayla at some point. How the heck am I going to tell her that I have to leave and never come back? She'd be heartbroken if I leave. Take her with us then, Kit. What? Are you out of your mind, you perverted fox? I will not kidnap Ayla from her own world. Her parents would kill me. Come on, Kit. Think of it this way. Once you find out how to create the portal, you can take with you and send her back whenever you like. You crazy fox, you have any idea what kind of trouble you are asking for? Ayla's no ninja. Then you can train her. Think about it. With her brains and her magical knowledge, she'd make a good ninja in only a few years' time. Not to mention the fact that's, well, you know what I mean by that. You pervert. Oh right. And you're not guilty of having fantasies of her. You've been peeking into my dreams again. I don't need to peek, Kit. You radiate them so much I have to be deaf, dumb and blind not to feel and see them. Thankfully I am neither of the three and I am happy for it. At least there's something to view when not in combat. You know, you've been doing this to me ever since we got here. Can't you find anything else to busy your time? Like what? There's no one here in this world worthy of me even giving you my chakra, Kit. This world is so boring I'd even gladly welcome all the formerly dead and rotting members of Akatsuki to come back to life and cause some discord here so we can some decent enemies to fight. The two dunderheads Garrett and his brother Hayden are so pathetic they made even a rookie Genin team look interesting. Fighting those two pests is like watching snow fall on the ground. I want a real-life OR death fight. And I want it soon before I die of boredom. Naruto was quite surprised at the words that erupted from his resident that he was unaware that Ayla was in his room and she was looking at him with considerable scrutiny and she decided to shake him a bit. Naruto. Are you? Eep. Ayla gulped as Naruto reflexively grabbed her arm and threw her to the bed and was now on top of her, poised to strike, relying on his battle-trained reflexes. So absorbed was he with his discussion with the Kyuubi that he didn't register her presence. It was only after a second or three that he recognized the fact that he was on top of Ayla, in only his shirt and pants minus his sandals, and she was in her dress with her touching his chest and her pressing on her slender, feminine and supple form. Naruto. Ayla was not expecting this to happen at this moment. Part of her rational mind told her to knock him off and free herself and stop him from going any further, but her deep feelings towards Naruto were telling her not to fight it. It felt nice to feel him on top of her and in such a very compromising and suggestive position as well. Naruto quickly realized what was going on and got off and spoke to Ayla in a very shocked tone of voice. I'm sorry. I was distracted and reacted reflexively, Ayla. Ayla sighed and spoke to Naruto. It's all right, Naruto. I guess I should have tried to get your attention in a different way. You were so deep in thought I thought you were having a hard time again with something that you needed to catch up on. Naruto chuckled and scratched the back of his head and replied. Sorry. I was just thinking about some things, namely that journey I am going on in the company of those females. The only one I recognize by their clothes at first was the priestess of Miley. I am kind of curious as to why I've never met her before. I am planning to drop by Miss Jenny's place and say hi and maybe even ask her if she knows this Melissa. You want to know more about this woman you're working with? I guess Ayla. Since she's a priestess of Miley, Jenny would know more about her. Better I get all the details of who I'm working with or else I might get lost in the dark on who my partners are. Isn't the first time that happened to me. That was true indeed. When Sai was in their team, their meeting wasn't on very good terms either. There was no doubt that Jeannie and Meryl were not going to be happy working with him considering how they met the first time, and if they met again, there was a chance that the two would attack him the moment they got a chance. He however placed that aside and planned to meet up with Jenny the following day at night. In the temple of Miley. In the main meeting hall, Melissa had just finished with her speech about heroes and the duties of the priestesses to their chosen champions, and when they would meet again, she would tell them what it means to be a hero. As she finished, she met a trio of younger priestesses. The three were Anne, Gannett, and Joan. The three of them were very much happy that she was going to be taking her ritual, and they wished her the best as she was giddy at the prospect of finding her champion. Meanwhile, back in Jeannie's home, the muscular woman was training with her sword, and after she was done, she was greeted by Meryl, who was working as an apple gatherer at one of her part-time jobs. The two had a discussion on Naruto and the young thief spoke. You know, I wonder if this guy we're hiring can really be a good mage. I doubt it. He hasn't even graduated yet from the guild and he certainly is no hit with the students. I heard a number of them got on his bad side more than once. True, but at least he's no wimp. I still think we should make him pay for what he did to us and we can see if he can actually fight without any trouble. Right. By the way, Meryl, any word from Melissa yet? No, she should be undergoing to ritual right now. Say, why don't we go and pay her a visit? I managed to get enough money to buy the supplies we need so we're good to go soon enough. Right. I just hope that Miley gives us someone we can count on. Later. Naruto was on his way to the temple and wondered if the time was right for him. He knew that Jenny was working with one of her favored disciples at the moment, and while it was still only mid-afternoon, he had a feeling that things would get interesting. It was when he arrived at the door that he knocked. The slit of the door opened and someone spoke to him. Yes. What are you doing here? Hello. I am looking for head priestess Jenny. Is she around? No. I'm afraid that head priestess Jenny is currently overseeing the ritual of revealing to priestess Melissa at the moment. That got Naruto's attention right off the bat, so the one he wanted to talk to was here as well and undergoing to the ritual no less. He had heard of the ritual of course while training under Jenny in the art of swordplay and what he recalled back in his younger days back in his world though he never took up the sword then. I see. Well, can I see her and Melissa later? I have some business to discuss with both of them. No, sorry, this is not the time. With that the slot closed and Naruto shook his head and wondered how long it will be before he could see Jenny. It was then however that his own shinobi instincts told him that company was right behind him and he turned to see none other than Jeannie and Meryl. You two. Let me guess. You both are here to see your friend Melissa, right? Jeannie nodded and replied. That's right and I take it you're here for a reason. That I am. Maybe to spy on Melissa and the other priestesses as well you pervert. Naruto looked at Meryl with incredulous eyes. Sure he was a bit of a pervert in real life, but he was nowhere near the level of his godfather Jiraiya and he was not in the mood to be told that he was a pervert since he was here on other matters. How many times do we have to say it? What happened 2 nights ago was an accident. Meryl snorted a bit and Jeannie replied. Accident or not, you embarrassed Melissa with what happened and of course I have every intention of paying you back for your attacks on me back at that tavern. The swordswoman took out her sword and then stopped when she saw the katana on Naruto's back. He had left behind his wand and his toad summoning contract scroll back in his room, under Isla's stewardship at the moment. It was then that Jeannie decided to see if this mage was good with a sword. She wanted to see how this mage can fight without the wand. You're carrying a sword, huh? Why don't we find out how good you are with it? Naruto did not like this and while he knew Miley was a god of war he doubted anyone found it tasteful for a fight to break out in front of a temple of all things. Hey, I didn't come here looking for a fight, I came here to speak to the head priestess. Jeannie however was focused on testing Naruto as well as paying him back for the injuries that he had given her and now was as good a time as any. Let's deal with the now. You owe me a chance to pay you back for those attacks you gave me 2 nights before, and if there is one thing I dislike it's unpaid debts. I want to be able to pay you back. Every time I recall the night you and I fought, my jaw aches a bit and that is annoying. If I were to recall, I was trying to avoid a fight, but you wanted one, and I take it you want one now. Less talking mage, either fight and draw your sword or leave before I get angry. Naruto could tell that this was getting out of hand and it wasn't helping matters when Meryl also made her move and got her daggers ready. Naruto quickly decided to sneak into the temple and avoid a confrontation with these two and here in front of the temple of Miley no less. He was not in the mood for a fight and quickly took out some of his leftover flash bomb pellets. And it was a good move as both Jeannie and Meryl moved closer, and were about to attack him. This told Naruto that the kid gloves were off, it was time to get serious. Jeannie and Meryl were blinded by the sound of the pellet going off and Naruto quickly moved out of the way but not before using a spare summoning scroll to summon a large amount of cable and quickly wrapped it around the two and restrained them and quickly moved out of the way. Jeannie and Meryl recovered from the flash and thought the mage had used a light spell to blind them and then tied them up. The swordswoman glared at this and managed to reach for her sword and lifted it up and began to cut the cable while Meryl did the same. The rope was very strong and it took a while for them to cut the first few strands and they shouted. We're going to get you. Naruto quickly moved away from the area and was soon on top of the temple and recalled that he would have to be cautious here. The temple did undergo maintenance every month as much as he recalled in the activities of the priestesses, but still, loose tiles and stuff were about. He then quickly flipped out of the way when Meryl fired her daggers at him and he fired back with a kunai of his own. Meryl ducked, barely being hit by the kunai. She had not expected the mage to be that agile. That was enough for Naruto to quickly throw another kunai at her and that was enough to force her back, unaware of the fact that she was near the edge and fell back, grabbing the edge in time. Naruto knew she would be fine, thieves were nimble ones. But if she was free, then that meant, now I got you. Naruto rolled out of the way as he turned and then charged and lashed out with an elbow and jammed it into Jeannie's stomach and that forced her back and he followed through with a quick push to force her back and he spoke. Now cool off, lady. Jeannie glared at that and Meryl got ready to fight as she got up, and the young thief was very irate. First you make me fall flat on my rear, and then you tried to make me fall off the roof of this temple. You are so dead, buddy. Scratch having you on the trip to the ruins, I'll deal with you now. I agree, you stand still and take your deserved beating. You two think I'm just going to let the two of you hit me? Out of the question, the very second you came to attack me, the kid gloves are off. You want a fight? Then bring it. The two got ready for a fight and so was Naruto. He might not have started this fight, but he was going to finish it one way or the other. As much as he was not in the mood to start a fight on top of the Temple of Miley, he had no choice but to fight here and now. Both Jeannie and Meryl attacked and Meryl fired her daggers, but Naruto quickly leapt over them and quickly borrowed a move from Lee. Leaf Hurricane. Naruto lashed out with a spinning kick that surprised Meryl as she was barely able to block and was sent back and then Jeannie took over and Naruto quickly grabbed a roof tile and slapped the sword away. And then as Jeannie raised her sword, he kicked the flat of the blade, forcing Jeannie to lose her balance and that allowed him to land a knee to her stomach to force her back. Man, for a mage that kick of his pack's a heck of a hit. Meryl said as she shook her hands to get rid of the shaking feeling after being hit by that kick of Naruto's and she got up and fired several daggers, aiming for Naruto's backside, but Naruto spotted that and quickly used the replacement jutsu, the same one Kakashi used on him back when they first met and he used Kage Bushin to attack his now deceased Jonin sensei. Needless to say a shout was heard. Oh ouch. Jeannie turned and pulled the daggers that had struck her right in the body which she used to sit down on and she glared at her partner. Watch where you throw those, Meryl. Sorry. Meryl was flabbergasted at this as where Naruto had been was now where Jeannie was. How the heck did he do that? Jeannie growled and ignored the pain on her backside and focused on Naruto and Naruto was about to get ready for another battle and quickly dodged the attack and Meryl moved in with her daggers at the ready as well as her knives to attack Naruto as he got up. Jeannie then used the flat of her sword to slam into Naruto, but Naruto saw through that and quickly made the same move as before, only this time with a different victim. Whack. WWWWWW. Meryl screamed as she dropped her daggers and rubbed her own backside as she just got slapped hard by the flat of Jeannie's sword while Naruto was grinning like a happy monkey on the other side of the roof. He pulled the same jutsu again, only this time it was Meryl who got replaced. The thief was shouting in pain and turned to Jeannie who was shocked by that as well as she was. Why the heck did you hit me? Sorry about that. Look, you two, we can keep this up all night and you still won't get me. Why don't you two stop this and give it up before hurt yourselves even more? Both glared and replied, never. Naruto got ready and moved back, only to hear something that he didn't like. Apparently there was some weakened and cracking stone there due to the weather as well as the usual wear and tear, as well as the recent fighting on the roof between him and Melissa's friends, and since it couldn't hold for long, he was very sure that he was going to. Great. Just my luck. This is going to hurt. Crash. In the private chamber. Is it human? Melissa looked at the water before her where the massive splash had been. She had been in the water when the ceremony began and was officiated by Jenny and two attendants. She had just been told by Miley in ascending that the next person she saw would be her champion. Though she was happy, it confused her as head priestess Jenny was going to be the first person she would see after this. That was when the stone roof cracked and fell down. Amazingly enough, she had been unharmed but then heard a shout and then saw something fall in the water before her. Melissa moved forward, and then the water moved up to reveal a blonde head, wearing a red robe with some strange symbol on the back and then there were black sleeves and then she heard the voice. Damn. I think Miss Jenny is going to need to have the roof repaired. No, it can't be. Melissa was shocked and prayed for it to be a dream, but she was wrong as she found herself staring at Naruto, who looked, and he also blushed as he realized that he was looking at none other than Melissa, in the this is not what you think. Melissa's answer. Ah, pervert. Whack. In Jenny's private chambers. Well now, this was unexpected. Jenny said as she looked at the two before her at the moment. Naruto had a slap mark on his face while Melissa was wearing her garb and giving Naruto a very dirty look. The young priestess then spoke to Jenny. Miss Jenny, I must insist that this is against my will. Naruto glared at Melissa and replied. You think I wanted this to happen? Melissa turned and spoke with a fierce blush on her face and replied. You were enjoying it, weren't you? I'd be an idiot to say I didn't enjoy it, you know. You, perverted male. Naruto glared. Well, excuse me for being human. Jenny looked at the two of them and couldn't help but feel a bit of humor in her mind. The two were going at it like she and Carwes did when they were younger and naive as well when they started out as adventurers. This felt very interesting, and since Miley had done this deed of revealing to Melissa, Naruto was her champion, but she knew that she needed to talk to Naruto about this matter. Melissa, I need to speak to Naruto for the time being, please leave the room. Melissa relaxed as best as she could manage and left the room, and then as soon as she was gone, Jenny made a move to her warhammer and chanted a spell. Naruto looked at Jenny and knew that there was something she wanted from him. Otherwise she would have never placed the privacy spell on the room he was currently occupying with her at the moment. All right, Miss Jenny, what exactly is it that you want from me? I want you to accept the need to be Melissa's champion. Naruto gave a shocked look at Jenny and replied. You want me to be her champion? No offense meant or anything, but I have a greater degree of priorities than babysit her of all things, besides she's got her allies. I am well aware of that, but there is a reason as to why I want you to be her champion, Naruto, as well as the fact that Miley has decreed it. You have a number of traits that I think will rub off well and influence Melissa for the better. Really now? What sort of traits are you referring to, Miss Jenny? You have the desire to succeed, which I know has seen you through many trials in your own world, and all you have experienced have no doubt taught you much about the outside world as well. You have also shown the willingness to learn and accept things. I recall the time you told me about your life being a Jinchuriki, right? Yes. You have endured something that I doubt anyone in the Church of Miley has ever endured, and instead of denying it or giving in to despair, you have learned to work with it and overcome all the hardship. And look at you now. You have grown into a fine young man and a skilled fighter as well as mage. I doubt that I could pull through if I had to lead the life you had. Hey, don't sell yourself short, Miss Jenny. You are a strong woman. Heck, you'd make a great medic nin back in my world. Jenny smiled at that and replied. Regardless, you have something that I believe Melissa needs, and that is the ability to understand one another. Now don't get me wrong about Melissa. She is the brightest of my students here in the Church of Miley, a skilled healer in her own right and a good priestess, but she has flaws. Who in the world doesn't have them? Correct. The flaws she has is she is too set in her ways of seeing things in a narrow mindset. While there is no doubt about the existence of good and evil in the world, not everything is as simple or as clear-cut as you might think. You know this very well, Naruto, considering all you have been through, but Melissa doesn't. She grew up reading storybooks and fairy tales and believes that those are real. You have to prove to her that those are just stories and are not real. She has to live in the real world and see both the beauty and the ugliness of it. You need to be there to show her how to not just understand it, but to deal with it in the way befitting a priestess of Miley, and also how to grow stronger for it. And I can think of no better teacher than you. Naruto could tell that Jenny meant every word she said, and there was no denying the fact that it was the truth. Still, it was something he was not agreeing to. He was trying to find a way home and not be a babysitter, but then he thought about it even more and then recalled many of the people who he knew long ago, people who meant a lot in his life and were good people. Though they were never that way when he first met them. In a way that surprised him, he was doing the things he had done before, and that was to teach others. He was starting to feel just how it was like when Kakashi used to teach him. He looked at Jenny and replied, "Are you sure you want me to do this? You know that I am not exactly from your world, and I don't know how Melissa will react if she finds out about, well, you know what I mean by that." Jenny nodded at that. She had been shocked to know what a ninja was in Naruto's world and to think that there were others just like him who were ninjas as well. But she had faith in her young student's abilities and the fact that he was not an evil being despite the fact that such an evil being resided inside of him. I know that Naruto, Melissa will be shocked and worse, but she has to learn either way that heroes are not the kind found in her storybooks and in her dreams. Heroes are people who are brought in to do things because it is the right thing to do. You have done many things that I know to be truly worthy of praise, and I have no doubt you will do well here also. Are you sure about all this? Yes. Will you do this for me and for Melissa's sake before you return to your world? Naruto thought it over and figured why not, at least this was going to be interesting. All right. I might not think this is a good idea, but I'll do as you ask. Good. And make sure to teach Melissa about the truth of the world, but do it well and make sure that you do it in a way that she can accept. Naruto shook his head and spoke to Jenny. All right. I am not sure why I got picked for this and I still think it's a bad idea, but I'll do it. All right. Now then, tell me everything that has happened between you and Melissa. I have a feeling since she speaks to you in such a way, you have met her before. You don't know the half of it. Oudesty. Melissa was pacing back and forth while wringing her hands and saying to herself. This is against my will. This is against my will. Naruto then walked out of the room and spoke to her. Hey Melissa, Miss Jenny wants a word with you. By the way, it looks like you are going to be stuck with me for a while. Naruto then decided to tease Melissa by giving her a very strong smile, and that made Melissa shiver a bit as he walked away. As Melissa walked in, she spoke to her superior in the church. Missy Jenny, this is against my will. I can't have him as my champion. Oh, why do you say that, Melissa? Because he is unprincipled, ill-mannered, and more. He struck one of my friends twice even if Jeannie was a woman. And he, did something perverted to me before what happened in the sacred area. No gentleman should ever do that to a woman in public. Jenny, however, was well aware of what Melissa was talking about. Naruto had filled her in on the details of his first meeting with Melissa and her friends Jeannie and Meryl and explained that it was an accident, and while he admitted that he did like it to a point, he was not the kind of person to do that to a woman at random, and he had tried to reason with them before he was forced to fight to defend himself against Jeannie's attack as well as Meryl's kick. Jenny knew that while it is considered proper manners not to hit a woman, she kept in mind that Naruto was from a world where that was not something men listened to, and there were female ninja after all. Many of them were even more deadly than the men as well. Thus Naruto is not above hitting a woman in combat to defend himself, and considering his life and the dangers in his world, she couldn't fault Naruto for it. I see. However, you have to follow the rules of our church, Melissa. Miley did state that the next person you will see shall be your champion, and the first person whom you saw was Naruto. Personally, I think he is a good choice despite what most would think. You know him. Yes. He and I have known each other since he started being a student in the guild under Carwes's personal sponsorship, and he is a gifted mage, despite what others may say. Plus, let's just say he is full of surprises. But still, he doesn't exactly strike me as a worthy champion, Miss Jenny. And he smiled at me in a very ungentlemanly manner. True, but I recall an old saying in my youth when I first started adventuring with Carwes when we were your age in Naruto's. It was, do not judge a book by its cover. I am very sure you are familiar with the saying after all. Naruto is a very interesting young man with considerable talents, otherwise Carwes would have never allowed him to be in the guild. Not to mention other traits and secrets. Secrets. Yes, Melissa. You have to learn more about Naruto to truly understand why he is your champion, and you have to do what you can to learn all that you can about him, even sleep with him if it comes to that. That was meant as a joke and a figure of speech, but that was more than enough to make Melissa turn as white as her own robes. SSS, sleep with him. I must even be in bed with that man. Priestess Jenny has lost her mind. Jenny could tell that Melissa was having very unhealthy thoughts and replied. That was a figure of speech, Melissa. Calm down. Anyway, it still stands. He is your champion and you must serve him to the best of your abilities. Do you understand me, Melissa? Melissa recovered and nodded despite her wish this was not the case. Yes, Priestess Jenny. As she left, she tried to remain calm, though in truth, her mind was in a mess. This is against my will. In the guild dorm, Naruto slapped his forehead as he walked back into his room and sat down on his bed. He had no idea how he got into this mess and why the god had him targeted for this job, but he had given his word, and as a future Hokage, he had to keep his promise to someone. He however had no doubt that Melissa was throwing a hissy fit with her friends in too. As much as he was not looking forward to this as he had other priorities, he had no choice at the moment and had to deal with it. The next day, Jeannie and Meryl were not happy with the news they got from Melissa. Not only was Naruto going to be Melissa's hero, but they were now stuck with him for the rest of their lives. The two had spent the early part of the morning listening to Melissa bemoan the fact she had the arrogant blonde mage as a hero. This was something they had not expected. They had hoped to get the mage to open the ruins and then get the treasure and then leave him to continue after giving him his part, as they did make a deal on the matter. But now they were stuck with him for good. Jeannie had asked if Melissa could take the ritual again, as maybe Miley made a mistake, and Melissa shook her head, saying that the ritual could only be taken once and there was no way Miley was making a mistake, as he was the war god and couldn't be wrong in his judgment. Both Jeannie and Meryl were not happy with this, but seeing as they had no choice, they gathered up the gear and waited as Naruto finally arrived after being given directions to the former soldier and knight of Ophen home. The blonde shinobi mage carried his toad summoning contract scroll and his katana on his back as well as his wand. Naruto glared deeply at the massive amount of things that were before him, and he looked at Meryl, Melissa and Jeannie with a completely annoyed look. Of all the things he was expecting from them, this was not one of them. They were expecting him to carry all their equipment into battle, and that made him even more annoyed. He was supposed to be a mage for Kami's sake, not a damn mule. You want me to carry all this? What do I look like? A pack mule? There were a number of clothes, weapons, tools, books, other provisions, and even a whole tea set, along with a number of plates and cutlery made from silver, much to Naruto's chagrin. Who the heck brought a whole tea set, cutlery, and plates to an adventure? It made no sense to him, and of course the fact that those were the kinds he knew nobility used on occasion made him even more curious as to why they were included. Jeannie and the others looked on, and Jeannie replied, "These are out gear and equipment. You want to help us with the ruin we needed to get to. So here's your chance, but you'll have to start somewhere, and besides, a bit of manual labor won't kill you. Yeah, or are you sacred of a little manual labor?" Meryl sneered a bit while Jeannie looked on. This made Naruto very annoyed. Naruto however was not budging on the matter. In his missions, both when he was in Konoha and with the pervy sage, he had traveled light, carrying only the bare essentials, which was money, food, spare clothes, weapons and scrolls for anything he might need, as well as some basic medical gear. He learned the hard way that packing too much was a bad idea, and being an adventurer meant bringing the needed things. If these three were supposed to be adventurers, they were the worst bunch he had ever seen. Either that or they were doing this to intentionally test him. You said you needed a mage to help you with your search in the ruin for any treasure. You mentioned nothing about me carrying all these. If you wanted a pack mule, why didn't you hire one to carry all this? Besides that, why bring all this? Whoever heard of an adventuring party carrying a tea set and plates? That's just wrong. Meryl replied. You want to complain so much? Fine, we'll find another mage to help us. Naruto snorted and replied with crossed arms. And I suppose it's escaped your attention that there are no other mages willing to go out on adventures, and if you're going to ask Isla to help, then forget it. She's got her studies to work on. I'm the only mage here at the moment, so unless you have a summoning contract with any of the other mages, I am the only one you've got. And the longer we stay here arguing, the bigger chance of some other party looking for this ruin you guys are going to. The three knew he was right. The longer they argued here with him, the bigger the chance was that there would be other parties out. As much as it pained them to admit that, they were not keen on letting this argument go to him. Both Meryl and Jeannie wanted to pay him back for what he had done 2 nights before, and since this was as good a chance as any, then they would do what they could to really test him. Jeannie then replied, if you won't haul that for us, then you are not coming to the ruins. Naruto however snorted. Fine, if I don't go with you, the magical seal door stays there in place and you don't get your treasure. The three found that they were once again in an impasse as Naruto was adamant on his stance. It was not long before someone had to cave in, and it wasn't Naruto. Jeannie could see that the mage was not budging and had to admit that the fact that he was not going to be intimidated was a bit admirable. At least this one's got some backbone. Had she and the others been aware of how hard Naruto trained to be at the level he was right now, they would have figured out that carrying luggage was not something that Naruto viewed as helpful. Learning the water and tree walking techniques took time, and he had failed 3 times on the graduation exams in the academy before learning the Kage Bushin technique. the training for the Rasengan nearly cost him his life more than once and drove him to exhaustion, as well as learning how to summon Gamabunta and the other toads. Then of course calling on the Kyuubi was also tiring as hell. Then there was the training on nature manipulation as well as using his Kage Bushin to learn the Rasen Shuriken and then to learn the Sage Arts. To be reduced to carrying these things which were not very practical in his mindset was a very serious insult to Naruto. Melissa could see that Naruto was dead serious about this and spoke. All right then, but you do realize that we still need these supplies, Naruto. Explain to me first why you need a set of plates, cutlery, and a tea set on an adventure. You plan on setting a picnic for the monsters if they show up. Melissa frowned a bit at that and replied. That is not your business to know. I have brought those with me for a long time since I took up the robes to be a priestess. Your former nobility aren't you. Only they had the money and influence to buy and use stuff like this. I am not hauling that stuff with me, and that is final. Jeannie was getting more annoyed, then drew her broadsword and replied. This is getting tedious, Naruto. Either haul it or we get to doing what I should have finished back at the bar. Naruto gave a slight smile. That again. All right then. If you can cut me just a bit then I'll haul this, but if I get to place a weapon on you, you allow me to have my say on this matter, deal? Jeannie grinned at idea. This was something she had been waiting for. All right. If I win, you stop complaining and haul everything, and if you do win somehow, you can say what you want on the whole hauling the items deal. Understand that, mage? Fine. Take your best shot. Jeannie nodded and readied her sword, and since Naruto merely stood there and readied his wand, she could attack him. She knew for a fact that mages needed time to cast a spell, so a warrior needed to get close to attack Naruto. She saw Naruto move his hands and she attacked quickly. Melissa wished that this wouldn't happen, but Jeannie would not kill Naruto. Just try and even the odds while Meryl looked on, eager to see the outcome. They got a surprise as Naruto seemingly vanished, only to appear behind Jeannie a moment later, with a large diamond-shaped blade in his left hand and his wand at the ready and glowing, with the blade next to Jeannie's neck and throat, much to the surprise of both Melissa and Meryl. What the? How did he move that fast? Jeannie's eyes widened as she felt the cold flat edge of the kunai under her chin and near her neck while feeling Naruto's wand on her back, and Naruto grinned. Having taken lessons from Lee and Guy, his physical speed was a lot better than before, though nowhere near that of his friend and his Jonin sensei. However, he was much faster than normal people in the sense that he used his chakra and training to increase his speed to a degree that he evaded Jeannie's attack easily. He smirked and replied, how about that now? If this had been a real battle, then I could use my kunai, and with that, I could cut your throat open in a moment, or I could fire a bolt of lightning point blank in your back. The charge might not be harmful at a certain distance, but at this range, let's just say you'd be flash fried in a minute. Jeannie was surprised at this and wondered if he had used magic. He must have used some magic. Maybe a spell that doesn't rely on incantations or something. There are some rumors of that being possible after all. Naruto, however, was getting tired of this and finally spoke to them all. Now that I've won this little wager, I suggest you relax and put that sword away, and then I'll have my say on this matter. Jeannie growled a bit at being defeated by magic, but she knew that she had made a deal and she had to honor the wager. She placed her sword aside, and Naruto could see that at this moment, the woman with the sword was being reasonable at least, though he was sure that she was going to challenge him again soon enough. Jeannie might a great swordswoman in this world, wielding two swords of two different sizes, but in his mind she was still going to need more training. He recalled Raiga, Kisame, and Zabuza as well as Suigetsu. All of them were part once of the Mist 7 swordsmen of the village of the Hidden Mist, and they had the toughest and most deadly ninja force in terms of brutality in combat. Those guys were deadlier swordsmen than Jeannie, and considering the kinds of weapons they used, they were nasty. And of course, there was that Jinchuriki known as Kurabi who could use 7 swords at once. He had even heard that even without assistance from his Biju, Kurabi had nearly killed Suigetsu, Jugo and Sasuke in combat. Those guys were much deadlier warriors in his mind and would have made Jeannie look like a rookie with a sword. All right, what do you want to say? First off, we are not bringing any cutlery, plates and the tea set because it is not needed in the forest. Second, I am a mage, not a pack mule. If you want someone to carry the supplies, then divide it equally with one another so no one gets weighed down. The next is that you keep in mind that I need to be able to move if I need to cast magic to fight with, and hauling all this is only going to make that part of the job of mage even harder. Are we clear on that? Because if we're not, I am not going to help you with the ruins even if you three decide to attack me all at once. The three looked at one another and Melissa sighed and removed the tea set, plate set, and the cutlery. Once those were out of sight, she turned to Naruto and spoke to him with a slightly sullen tone. All right, the tea set, cutlery and the plates are gone, can we go now? Naruto smiled at that and then replied. Good, now just for today since you three decided to listen to me for once instead of trying to cut me down like a reed, I'll carry these items, but only for today so don't expect me to be your pack mule the next time we work together. Meryl snorted at that. Don't get any ideas, this is a one-time deal. I rather doubt that, since despite my dislike on the matter. Now then, allow me to handle this part so we can get on our merry way. Naruto placed aside the kunai and his wand and then took out a trio of scrolls and unwrapped them. These were summoning storage scrolls that he had on hand when he got sent here in this world and he would always keep these handy. Melissa, Jeannie, and Meryl looked at the scrolls with some degree of confusion as the language was unknown to them. They looked like chicken scratches compared to the runes that they were familiar with. Naruto took all the food, medicine and provisions into one scroll and placed them all there and then used the hand seals and the food and medicine all disappeared and there in the middle of the scroll was the word for supplies. Naruto then rolled up the scroll and retired it and placed it away. He did the same for the spare weapons and other gear and then repeated the procedure and the items disappeared. He then placed the other items, namely the clothes and spare items. Jeannie touched the scrolls and opened them but couldn't make heads or tails of the words and the same could be said for Melissa and the priestess turned and spoke. What are these? Storage, summoning scrolls. They are a necessity for me since they allow me to carry large numbers of items without being weighed down and no they aren't magic after all. Jeannie snorted. Not magic huh? Nope. Magic uses runes and mediums such as wands, medallions and the like. These scrolls don't use runes and I'm the only one who understands the language and it works only with the right hand seals, plus it needs another method to be used, and that is blood. Blood. Yep. But that's for another time. He took the scroll and retied it and did the same to the two other scrolls. The three looked at the blonde and wondered what he meant, but he was not saying anything else at the moment and took the scrolls and placed them into his back pouch. If I was to carry them the old-fashioned way, that would inhibit my ability to cast magic as I would be weighed down and nothing is more annoying for a mage than to be weighed down. Now let's go shall we? At the ruin, Naruto and the others arrived at the site and the first thing they needed to do was move some of the debris out of the way. And he turned to the others and spoke. So this is the ruin you three are so hot to have me open. Yes, this place was no doubt left behind by some noble family. We had to fight with a band of goblins when we came here before. Naruto thought it over and then recalled something on his way back to Ophen previously. So you guys were the ones making that entire racket when I went through the forest a few days ago. It figures, so where the door is you guys are having problems with. Underneath there. Melissa pointed to a large pile of stones there and Naruto gave the priestess a look of annoyance. Let me guess, you want me to move the debris right? Melissa nodded and replied. You can use magic for that after all. Naruto snorted and replied. Bad idea. I use battle magic remember. If I tried using battle magic on the rubble, there's a big chance I'd just make it worse. The last thing we need is the whole tower falling on our heads you know. So how do you plan to do it? Lift them all by hand. Jeannie and Meryl looked on as Naruto placed down his massive scroll that was on his back and then made some of those odd hand signs and then spoke. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. In a large poof of smoke, the blonde mage was surrounded by a large number of exact duplicates of himself, surprising the others as he was not using his wand to cast the spell, just those weird hand gestures and then those copies of him just showed up and were ready to get their orders from the blonde mage. 3 of the copies moved to the forest and while the others quickly moved to the rubble and Naruto turned and spoke. Those 3 will be the sentries, anything they see, they will tell me, now then, time to get to work. Jeannie was surprised at this. She had heard of spells that were able to make illusions so real to the eye that it would be difficult to tell the difference from the real thing, but this was done before her without the use of a wand, and as far as she could see, the man only had his wand but had not used it. He must be using a medium that I can't see at the moment. Never mind, as long as that door is open I don't care what else he can do at the moment. But let's see if annoying him can be done. Neat trick, but I don't need magic for that. Meryl thought as she looked one. Meanwhile, Melissa was thinking even more about how to deal with the fact that Naruto was her champion and wondered what could happen once Naruto got down there in the ruins. She paled at the memories and what Jenny had said to her the night before. She was surprised at the fact that Naruto could do his cage bushin, and then, much to her horror, her imagination got the better of her as she began to wonder just what he would do to her if he decides to ask her to sleep with him, and he would use that on her. This is against my will. This is against my will. Hey Melissa, are you all right? You look really pale. Melissa realized that her imagination was going wild again and quickly managed to calm herself and spoke to Meryl's question. With that, the blonde shinobi mage got to work on removing the rocks and then focused on the heaviest one of the bunch, and it was then that Genie decided to help. That surprised the others and Naruto also. I was under the impression you were not planning on helping. Hey, you made it this far and you've got some backbone. Might as well do something to help you out a bit. Besides, you won't be a good mage if you break your back and become useless. Naruto snorted as he and his cage bushin as well as Genie lifted the slab and then it hit the ground. Naruto then walked over to others and reached into his back pouch to get the scroll that had the food in it, unwrapped it, bit his hand to draw blood, much to the surprise of the others, and then traced the blood on the scroll, placed it on the ground and spoke. Release. The food appeared and Naruto grabbed some food and ate his share while the others got their food. Melissa had to admit to some degree that Naruto was not too bad, though she still had her doubts of his worthiness as a hero. As soon as he was done, the cage bushin poofed away and he sat down to rest a bit. It was always draining to have the information to come back, but Naruto, ever the ninja, sucked it up and got to work on his next task. Naruto looked over the large double door that was there before him and decided to examine it further to make sure there wasn't anything else in the area that could prove a danger to him and the others. If there was one thing he knew for a fact, ruins don't always have to be trapped with magic, plus his experiences in his world taught him even more. As soon as he was done, he got to work and took out another of his scrolls and checked on the record of seals to be sure he had the right one. There were variants after all of a certain seal. He ran his wand over the stone and saw the lines of magic that held the stone slab in place. It was then that the rather impatient Meryl spoke. So, how long does it take for you to open this thing up? Keep your pants on. This isn't as easy as it looks. Whoever sealed this place up went through a lot of trouble to lock it down in the first place. This might take a while, so let me do my work. Maybe you need to read your books again then, considering that you've only studied in the guild for a short time and no doubt skipping classes made it harder for you since you didn't graduate from what I've heard. Genie said, rubbing in the fact that she found out that Naruto had a bad habit of skipping classes by using some cloning spell to annoy his instructors. This told her that he was not a good mage since he had not attended graduation. Genie, however, was unaware of the fact that his cage bushin had been gathering information and not just covering for him as well. Naruto turned and gave his tormentor a very simple look and replied. And I suppose you know the difference between white and black magic. Do you know how to cast a cantrip or how to cast a fireball? Do you know how to create a wall of water or create a massive gale with a wave of a wand? Because if you do, by all means do it right now so we can stop yapping and get this treasure you three seem to be after. If you can't do any of that stuff, then let me worry about how to get this darn thing loose, alright. With that done, Naruto went back to looking the thing over while Genie stewed a bit, as despite being angry with him, she knew he was right. Magic was not her strong point. Melissa was not happy with how this was going and then spoke to Naruto. Naruto, you don't have to be so abrasive. It's the truth after all, Melissa. I doubt she could break through this door with her sword, because if breaking this sealed door was so simple then she could have done this. Now I need to work on this. Take a break but be ready. If what you told me is any indication, those goblins might come back and the last thing we all need is them behind us. Melissa could see that Naruto was serious as he studied the door and she decided to leave him be, though she still felt somewhat curious about this mage they hired. He was certainly not what she expected of a spellcaster. Naruto managed to determine that it was a earth bonding spell and it was the reinforcing variant. It made sense at the very least. This door was made from gathered earth and then ritually bonded to the stone in the entrance, and if it was hit hard or pried, the spell would just gather energy from the surroundings and reinforce itself, somewhat similar to the chakra circulatory system in a ninja. He then recalled witnessing the Byakugan in action when he saw Neji and Hinata fight in his battle with Neji, and for a brief moment, he wondered how they were doing and spoke his thoughts out loud. I wonder how Neji and Hinata are doing back home. Meryl, who was eating a bun, spoke. Who are Neji and Hinata anyway? Friends of yours in the guild? Naruto shook his head. No, old friends of mine, back in my land. I'm hoping to see them again since it's been some time since I've seen them. Anyway, this seal is almost dealt with, so hold on. That was enough to get the attention of the group, and then Naruto chanted the right spell and worked his magic, and as the door vanished back into earth and dust, the female trio moved forward with Genie in the lead with a lit magical torch and went in, and then Naruto moved on in as well, and Meryl replied. Take the back, mage. Hey, this mage has a name, and that is Naruto, so use it, shorty. What was that? Meryl glared and spoke as she readied her daggers, and the others looked at Naruto, who was far from intimidated, and he spoke. You heard me, shorty. Use my name the next time you speak in my direction. Do that and I use your real name, and I won't call you shorty. Don't you call me with that name, you arrogant jerk. Arrogant jerk am I? All right then. How about I call you Squirt, or Tiny? You. Say my name, Pipsqueak. It won't kill you, and it's proper after all. Meryl gritted her teeth and then walked away in a huff. You're not worth it. All right then, you human flea, but I'll still call you by other names. How about Ant Queen? Or how about I call you a skinny female gnome? Or maybe I can call you a pint-sized scarecrow. Meryl was fuming. One issue she had was the fact that she was short. While that was an advantage in her profession as a thief, it still galled her, and Naruto was not making things any better when he called her a scarecrow, and she was tempted. Oh, she was tempted to fire her daggers, but had enough and spoke. Fine. Naruto, will you take the rear position? Now that didn't hurt, did it? Thanks for using my real name this time, Meryl. Meryl gritted her teeth and replied. You're welcome, Naruto. Melissa then spoke to Naruto. That was uncalled for, Naruto. Meryl is very sensitive about her height. Listen, Melissa. I have a name, and it's not mage or any of the sort, it's Naruto. It's considered a sign of courtesy to say a person's name when addressing someone, right? Yes, it is. See, I don't call you names since you use my name properly, but she didn't, so who's at fault here? But to speak of Meryl in such terms, it's ungentlemanly. Maybe, but it worked, didn't it? Now let's go. In truth, calling Meryl by those names was a bit much in his mind. Back then he used to be the short one in the class, next to Hinata when she was a student, and his height was always a bone of contention for him. And while the insults were effective on Meryl, it reminded him about how he himself used to be picked on by his height as well when he was a kid. The group moved down while Meryl gritted her teeth and was imagining how to make Naruto pay for those names he called her. However, as they moved deeper into the ruins, Naruto was getting a sinking feeling, and since the Kyuubi had enhanced the sense of smell that he had on him, it was able to tell him to be wary. There's creatures down here, Kit. I can smell them, possibly goblins. Naruto nodded, and he was wary. If there were goblins in the forest, then there would no doubt be others in the place below, and he spoke. I got a bad feeling about this place. Something stinks of trouble in the air. Or it could be just you smelling your sweat. Genie replied as a snide remark, and Naruto replied. If it was, then you smell too. What? You were sweating too, if I were to recall. Maybe you're smelling yourself. Genie turned and spoke as she reached for her sword. Be careful what you say, Naruto. You are getting into more trouble than you think. Genie, Naruto, please calm down. We have to find the treasure here first. Genie nodded and moved on, and Melissa reproached Naruto. It's not proper to say that to a woman, Naruto. It's the truth to an extent. If you don't want to be said that you smell, don't start by saying it yourself to another person. Though at this moment the scent of a woman is a lot better than the smell I'm getting. We're not alone in here, Melissa. Get that weapon of yours ready. Melissa wondered what Naruto meant by that as they arrived in the main chamber and spotted a large tomb, and then Genie opened it and they saw that there was nothing inside. Meryl was not happy, but that was when Naruto turned around and shouted. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. In the moment they were surrounded by a ring of Naruto's Kage Bushin, and sure enough, the reason for the blonde actions was seen as a massive army of goblins came at them. Meryl put two and two together and spoke. This place must have been raided already and the goblins must have made this place into a nest. Damn it, this ruin's already worthless. Jeannie readied her sword and replied as Melissa also got ready with her war hammer. We can worry about that later, Meryl. We need to fight our way out for now. If this is a nest, then the ones we fought with the days before must have been out hunting. Let's fight our way out before we become their dinner. The goblins closed in and Naruto got ready to fight, and so did Meryl, Melissa, and Jeannie. The three of them were getting ready to fight for their lives. The three had expected the blonde mage to use magic, but Naruto, however, had another idea. The fact that there were hordes of the goblins meant that using magic was not a good idea until he could deal with the numbers. Thus magic was out and the art of the ninja is in. It was time for Naruto to stop being the mage and become the ninja.